Hello, hello. What is happening, everybody? Happy Wednesday, happy Thursday. How's everybody doing? We are live again. All right, what do we got? Scottish Bonsai says, looking forward to this. Me too. Good to see you guys. Here comes the sun. Jim Altergott says, hello from Chicago, back for more class in session. Arnell says, hello, happy hump day to majority of North American RSPers. Good morning, afternoon, evening all. Darren Torres says, hello, Mike. Good evening, Officer Mike. TC from New Zealand, Zal from Singapore. Good morning to you guys. PK, it's time for Rinaldi Vision. Yeah, I wish, right? Have Disney pick that one up. Cat Loafer says, good evening. John Foisey says, hey, Mike, good evening, good morning, everyone. Sylvain, hello, hello. Welcome to the Jimmy Jam Show. Joe says, what's up, what's up? Whiskey in hand, microphone stand, boy. You got it. All right. What else? Jackieville, switching layout. Hi, everyone from Switzerland. Hello, bud. Dom Van Doom, hello, hello from the new world champions, Atlanta Braves. Oh, sweet. Yep, congrats on that one. I was very happy you guys beat Houston. It was a super exciting series to watch. We destroyed the Astros with that tomahawk chop. That score last night was pretty serious. Matt F says hello, greetings from Boston. And then Pete Toohey says greetings all. MSN says hello. Oh yeah, how's everybody doing? Everybody good? It is cold and rainy here. Phil Bonafini says, hey Mike, what's up? Rollout Commanders, hello. Rob, right? Try to remember his name. Dan Donat says, hit that like button. Man's dropping skills. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that one. Chris Babsy, what's up, man? EC Treadway, hello. Franco358. Caught this one live. You did. Yeah, and just Robert, I see you there. Sorry, man. Hello. Jason Gillis, there you are. Hello. Joe says, what's up? He's got the whiskey. Yep, we got you. I'm just scrolling back. I got everybody. I was going to say, yeah, this will be the schedule for at least the foreseeable future, probably through the winter time, at least through the end of this year, maybe into January. Wednesday afternoons for sure. I might have to switch up a day or two with some events coming up and some things happening in December, but pretty sure we'll be on Wednesdays from here on out for a while anyway. Then what else we got? Put out a newsletter this week. That was fun. That's always good times. What else we got? Let's see. Oh, that's all I got. Max Veneracion, I can't say your last name. Veneracion, hello. I think that's correct. Craig Mix, hello, bud. Slammed at work. Try to follow your shows. Ronald Sorrell says hello, all. Don says excited the shipping and printing and technique guides have been set in motion. Yep. Everything is in motion. It's going slow, but it's going, so I'm fine with that. And Mr. Nog says good morning from the South Pacific. From the All Blacks are in the crew today. There's a lot of them. Patty Cakes, hello, bud. I see you. Any early questions related to anything important? Put the word question in front of your thing and let's knock some out. If you guys have any questions from the last week or so, we'll do about 10-15 minutes of questions before we get rolling into a little project here. Mr. Desert Tank. Mike Skyer says hello, hello. Matt 58 says, hey, what's up? Back in a few, just gonna get a quick eat. We'll be here. We'll be here when you get back. Al's Modeling Photography says hello from Scotland. Right on. Right on, right on. Got a few friends in Scotland. That's one of them countries on the bucket list. New Zealand, Scotland, all them cool looking island countries. I got to go hit. Great to have coaching background while painting. You got it, Mike. Frederic Poupon, hello from France. Bonsoir, mon ami. Timothy Wood, what's up? How you doing? I'm well. Playing with some tracks. Question: will there be some panel wash, pin wash part of some sort? Sure. OPR always has a little bit of that. Yeah, if you guys aren't aware what OPR represents, it's all the stuff. Got some stuff to finish up, but wanted to stop in, show some support. Hope all is well. Yeah, you too, Chris. I haven't been around you guys in a minute. I've been buried. I'm up to here, my friend. Yeah, busy here. This time of year, man's rough. It's every day you turn around, there's 10,000 things to do. So it's one of those holiday season between family, friends, work, stuff we got going on with RSP. Anyone need a tin of tartan paint? Right. Yeah, it's for that trip up north to the Highlands. Make sure I don't play with these the wrong way. This particular track set, the pinholes are sometimes you'll see that with Fruels. This is, I think the Cromwell set's a fairly old tooling from Fruel model. You gotta be careful with the pins. When you blacken them, the pins stay pretty good, but sometimes if you're upside down the wrong way, you gotta be careful, they'll fall out. Question says, I know it's probably been covered, lay down the red oxide. Should I do a coat of varnish before the hairspray? Nope. Should be okay after 24. Yep. If it's, to be clear though, Joe, are you using red oxide primer or using red oxide paint as a primer? There's a difference. The primer is cured and catalyzed and is unaffected by the alcohol in the hairspray. If you're putting paint down, the actual emission model's paint, then yeah, you can. I'd actually recommend throwing some poly in it instead of a varnish. MIG's Air Cobra airbrush. How are they? Nope, not. I'd probably ask that on MIG's thing, Zal, to be honest with you, because you guys should know by now I don't really use Ammo's products, so I wouldn't have an answer to that. Question for resin printed tracks for the Poland campaign. What would you use as a base color for the track? Any dark gray brown as a base color. You know, kind of dark brown, chocolate brown gray is going to be okay for that. Joe says MMV paint. Yeah, if you've already painted it, Joe, then yeah, if you're not gonna have success if you put alcohol-based stuff on top of it. So, yeah, go ahead and throw a varnish down if you want. Yeah, Chris, it's a busy time of year, and we even hit Thanksgiving yet. I think Black Friday's in a few. It's gonna give you a little. It's gonna be one of them years because I think everybody's been bottled up for too long. We've been cooped up. Greg says he's glad to see the email, understand the supply chain mess, and we're looking forward to the the Heinkel book will be probably February printing, the way it's looking. I'm trying to get them to do 2 at once. They did 3 at once. They had a lot of supply issues in terms of paper. We tried to do 5 at once. That was their suggestion. And then the paper supply went in the toilet. And that's a combination of not enough paper supplies in the right locations, and also other bigger publishers that have bigger jobs require more paper than ours, and we don't pay very much money for our books because we're a little dude. So we get pushed aside a few times. So there's a bunch of reasons why that is, but it's kind of collectively slows us down. But it looks like if they can just keep printing, they've got 6 to do. So they're humming along. I'm waiting to see the samples from what just got printed this Monday, Tuesday. So what is today? Wednesday. Probably get those samples next week, and the initial shipping should be starting for those dudes. Too much cray. It is, man. It is totally too much. Dennis says it's magic. Hey, Mike. Hey, everyone. Question: are you working on something for the Gundam Artifact? I am not. I am not going to participate in the Artifact contest. I did actually talk to Zach months ago about maybe judging, but they made a deal with SMS dudes to do that, so that's cool. I've got other stuff to work. Dude, I'm so slammed. I did get 2 of them in, and again, that was all. I had originally ordered the first wave last year when that was announced, the Artifact setup, and then I got them, and I was a little bit disappointed, to be truthful. I think some of you have seen these. You'll know what I mean. They're not the nicest of little kits, even though they're fun. And then the time frame of the schedule ending right before Christmas, holidays, all that stuff. I got so much with the book shipping and stuff. It's better off if I don't participate. I wouldn't finish anyway. Question: Mike, do you plan to do a stream of different approaches to weathering tank wrecks? Probably not. I haven't done a tank wreck, so I probably don't have any plans to do a tank wreck, to be honest with you. It's not my style. I don't like wrecked machines per se. I will do abandoned to a point, but as far as like a wreck or like a damaged thing, not for a while anyway. MSM, maybe something I can plan for next year. Lay that out. I don't know. Let's see what else we got. Sorry if I missed this. Will there be one live stream? Yeah, some Wednesdays, Jim. So Sundays are just, I need the extra day for work and for other stuff, and I'm also putting stuff on Patreon to just is on a more consistent basis. So I need a little extra time between that and everything going on, because the first 3 books, like I said, they've arrived. We got 4 more this year, hopefully, if they come in correctly, which means in the next 2 months. That's a really tight window. So that'll give us, 3 plus 4, whatever that is, 7. And then there's 2 more first part of next year too, because it's just going to kick over after the holiday. We'll lose, usually by the 3rd week of December through the 2nd week of January, we just lose that. There's just, nothing happens. Even if I wanted to, even if I pay for it, nothing happens. So, patty cakes. No, you're fine, man. I'm not. I don't compete. Just, yeah, and that was kind of, I'm not sure. I had actually wanted to try to do something with Zach in terms of doing one of those, not as a compete against you guys, but as, I don't know, I was trying to think of some way to kind of work in a build for that artifact contest, and then kind of participate with you guys somehow, but not like I wasn't trying to go head to head, Patty Cakes and Mike and all those guys in the artifact contest, but I wanted to participate and do something for it, but I don't have the time, even though I got my 2 little dudes. I got the Nightingale and the High New. But I did build them. I did build all 5 of them the first time. I did sell them on eBay too, by the way. Literally for what I paid for them. It's just like whatever. Okay, another person, but yeah, okay. Does Patreon auto deducts a month? Yeah, it's a monthly subscription, Al. It does it all. Yeah, once you sign up, it's all automatic, my friend. How do you know a project is finished? Dude, really? How do you know? I mean, goodness, dude, we could be here all day talking about that. I don't know, intuition, using your references, going through the weathering and all that stuff. I mean, you're never probably ever going to be done. Contest deadline, got to throw it down, dude, I'm done. You'll know. I mean, it's mostly intuition, Flip. Work equal football user. Yeah. The TV's in the other room, Joe. I can hear the red zone. I don't get to watch too much. Let's see, I will watch Monday Night Football with Peyton and Eli. I do take Monday nights off sometimes. But the Sunday stuff, because of all the games that are on, I put the red zone on in the other room and I listen to it. And then if my teams are up, I'll run in for a few minutes and I'll watch it for a little bit. Any chance of a group build for Patreon? Yeah, probably. Probably gonna, stuff like that, Joe, Patreon in terms of like group stuff, maybe early next year. I'm concerned in the next 2 months what's gonna happen. And then I've got some stuff. The first week of December looks like an absolute disaster. So, but yeah. Question: how much do you typically sell your models for? A lot of money, Sal. If you have to ask, can't afford it. I don't talk about that publicly. When when I sell something on eBay like that, I just built them, snapped them up, and sold them. That's not what the ones I do for work and stuff. They go for real money. So Mike, like I said, I finished and built all the first wave and then sold them off collectively as a built set. And that was 6 months ago. And then when all the Bandai stuff really started to get compressed, and Zach had mentioned the contest, I don't know, 6 months ago. He actually hinted the artifact contest. I was like, oh shit, I better order a couple just in case, because I was gonna, try to do something with it. But I literally got mine, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and I know how much work they are. There's a lot of seams, Mike, a lot of seams. And the joints aren't very good. The little shit joints aren't very good. I mean, it's a good little brick. Like if you just make it a brick, dude, totally fine. Just glue the thing up, make it a brick, don't sweat it. Oh, the big dog. No, I have it. It's in the closet. It's postponed, but I just wanted to make sure I got that one. And I did get my shipping notice yesterday or last night on the RG High New. But I'm on the slow boat. You know how FedEx sometimes he puts to the post office tracking numbers? Yeah, I'm on the slow smart post thingy. So I'm not supposed to get my High New RG one until the 21st of November. So probably Thanksgiving if it shows up on time. General subject, German jerry cans, were they primed and what color? Red primer. You can do a red primer jerry can if you want. Most of them are just raw steel. And then usually just you can skip a red primer if you wanted to. And the jerry cans, it's kind of your call, Sylvain. If you want some color, it's like a splash of color, you can. If sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. There's no hard consecutive evidence that they're all red oxide. Yeah, so even Dan's saying they're not. I've seen examples of both, Sylvain, so I don't know if sometimes it's a repaint. I don't know if it was a museum example restored. But yeah, I would expect jerry cans not to be primed, to be honest with you. That would be my natural inclination. Question, not to be creepy, I was a wreck. It looks like behind you, the window, your sills stored. Yep, Pete, they're all stored upside down. Two reasons for them. I store them upside down so you can see the color because they have the black cap. So you can't tell the color when they're all standing up. Second thing is I find them a little bit easier to mix. There's a mixer ball in it. There's a little ball in there. But storing them upside down, I just find they're a little bit easier to mix up when you grab them and you need it. But it's the quick color reference. You can see them because they're all one color cap on the top. What's up, Squid Lips? How are you, bud? Montreal is here. Using the oxide in the cans as a rust base. Yeah, you can. You could totally do that, Joe. It's not going to be a big deal. You can tweak all that in weathering in terms of what you're trying to do. Perfect grade 78, built not painted. Ooh, yeah, I'd grab that, Joe. Although I do think the perfect grade Unleashed is back in stock, at least for a little while. I don't know if they're swooped up or not. I know they got delivered from what Adam said the other day on his little podcast thingy or his video thing. Question general, so yeah, we got that. Question, how much you took it up to, what else? Any chance for a group? So yeah, probably a group build sometimes. And that's the thing, I'm not big on all that stuff. That's kind of more for the kids. Yeah. Does Patreon auto detect? Yeah, but Flip, to your question, I mean, a lot of that's experience, a lot of that's intuition. You know, if you've built 5 models, if you've built 50, it's going to be a different answer, you know. So it's, you know, knowing when a model's finished is, a lot of that is you just kind of have to learn that. There's no hard answer. There's no, I can't tell you the model's finished or not. Gunnar, what's up, man? Gute Nacht. How are you? Panzer Dan, Panther Build, LOL. Damn, Joe, that's a $200 kit. Yeah, it's more than that. It's pushing 300. That's a $300 Jimmy Jam right there. 275 or something like that, 250, something if you're lucky. If you get a perfect grade Unleashed Rexy for under 2, you're doing good. Silvis says, hello everybody. Your single model books are just the best out there. Thank you. Pinpoint explanation to great length. That was the point. I appreciate that. Thank you. Paul Ditto. Hello, Paul. How are you? Welcome. What else we got? Did I hit everybody's questions? Yeah, look, he's already got his done. I'm so jealous, dude. Yeah, I'd probably do my high noon before I got to the Nightingale. I don't have a place for the Nightingale, even if I got it done. Like, I don't even know where to put the high grade. And that's one of those that surface detail is fairly naked, that I think it's probably, if I'm going to do some detailing on a kit, I don't do very often. Because I'm a little bit like Zach. I like them kind of more simple. I'm not a big scriber dude. I did get my Ver Ed book. I finally got that book, and that was an interesting read. I was interested in that book for a while. It's a beautiful book. But you know, you pull out the fact that he uses a lot of circles and a lot of details like that, and the piston stuff. There's no painting in it. He talks about no varnishes. He talks about no top coat, which is cool because I'm down with all that. And then the other half of the book was just a gallery. I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you. So I'm hoping maybe as he moves forward that he can do more with his stuff. The book itself, the production value of the book was beautiful. It was really nice. But as far as actually building Gunpla and stuff like that, it was, you know, I think there's probably a little bit more, as like if I was editing that book, I would have pushed for a little bit more, at least part of it is more of a step-by-step in terms of I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Because that's how you guys think, by the way. Because that's how I think too. When I look, I'm like, well, okay. Like I'm guessing at half the stuff. And that's just kind of a notation, observation, because it's a really nice book. Yeah. Oh, it's on the leash. I got my first AK weathering pencil in the mail today. John Force. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I've never used them, but I'm guessing a lot of the art store watercolor pencil stuff are basically all the same formula, more or less. Tristan says, howdy. How are you, Ben? What else we got? But yeah, that's you can just see I'm looking at the screen. You can just see the paintball going. So yeah, I use there's an IKEA. It's just a picture rail, and I put it right under the edge of the windowsill because that keeps my bench top clean. I don't have a ton of space in front of me, and I'm not a huge fan of all the various systems. It's kind of a floating island workstation, so I don't have my paints out all the time. And I kind of liked them back there. It was kind of a nice. I look for like interesting little, you know. I have another window, and I'm probably going to do a whole nother row of them over there because that's about 100 colors right behind me. So, but yeah, yeah, that perfect grade. Well, the Nightingale's just, yeah, she's just giant across. You know, I think it probably takes double the footprint of even a perfect grade, to be truthful. So question following on my research for my 265 Panzer Beffelswagen. So Joe says he gave to me as a tip. Okay, for a tattoo I've been doing it for him. Are you okay, Joe? Cool. There's another. We got a couple tattoo dudes in here. I don't know if Leo's hanging around too. We got a San Diego dude and a Miami dude. Good spots for tattoos. You know, nice weather. He's a collector. Okay, cool. His wife is complaining. Yeah, swoop those up, Joe. Those are good scores. If you get good quality builds that are not painted, that you can unsnap and paint, or if you can do whatever, I'm always down for that. I don't have much left in terms of that. I had a few snapped up builds that I purchased kind of to kind of gauge some interest on some stuff I was doing, but I think I got rid of most of them. I had about 200 stuff total, and I think I sold over half of them. I think I'm down to a little less than 100 on the shelves now. Focus Creative Studio. How are you, Jason? What's up, bud? Yep. Aussie Stu, hello. I see you, man. What else we got? Okay, I think we're pretty much good to go. I'm just chilling. I should probably get to work, right? I'm tired. I've used T-Rex Studio Studio. Yep. Track links? No, not their track links. I have their tool bracket set, Jim. I have a set for the very old 71 Tamiya Panzer II. They are on the fragile side, the pins don't stay in once installed. Okay, on that situation, when you have a case where you have a track set and the pins are loose, especially non-metal. Oh, see, there it goes. I did lose. See, that's what I did. Did you see that, guys? See that right there? That's what I get for messing with them. Certain full sets have that too, where the holes are just, and you know, I know you hear a lot about that with the drilling of full. And I'll get back to you in 2 seconds, but yeah, I would probably prime your pins, Jim. Just you know, lay those all out like double side tape. Lay a row out of tape. Lay that down, and then some primer on that. That'll thicken those up. And then if they're resin, I don't like to do the glue on the resin pin track thing, because what happens is you just get a link that won't move, and they're fragile anyway. What's up, homie? How are you, Steve? Joe says he's happy the model building keeps him out of the bars. Yeah, I'd imagine that's true for many of us. I haven't been going over much anyway, to be honest with you. Yeah, let's see if I can reinsert said pen. To do some track repair, boys. Hold on a sec. Oops. There we go. Yeah, I should know better. I mean, they're good to a point, but if you dick around with tracks like this, and especially where one side where the pins are sticking up, so put the pins up. Excuse me. All right. Problem solved. All right. Couple more questions, and we'll get rolling here. I'm ready to go. That's my suggestion. You have to thicken something up, Jim, or you know, you can paint them. Primer works fine. Any kind of thickener, you know, paint, primer. Glue is going to be a pain in the butt. I would spray them, especially as you probably have, you know, 30, 40 set. I'd actually put those on a nicer model too, by the way. That 71 Tamiya Panzer II is like ancient. It's not even like good ancient. It's just, unless you're, you know, I mean, you probably, I guess you could theoretically maintain, I guess, the base shape of it and stuff. I'm not even sure proportionally that thing's correct. What else we got? But, I mean, if it was like an older Dragon Panzer II or like the Allen, the Russian ones, I think they had a couple Panzer IIs. I would probably, you know, but I would nudge you to slip that kid over. Didn't they do a new Panzer II for like 25, 30 bucks? Yeah, or varnish too. A varnish would be another one too. I think Dan's mentioned, if you have to do a lot of them, you know, maybe if you haven't put them together, if they're already assembled and the pins are all falling out, then maybe brush some varnish in there. Because it's clear and you can kind of move on. Matte varnish, I do a matte varnish. That way they don't get all slippery with the gloss. So when I'm missing links, why was there so many pop-up publicity? It's hard not to lose. So wait, hold on, Sylvan. Let me read your question here. Following my research, okay, cool. When I was missing links, why is there so much pop-up publicity? Are you talking the advertising? That's Tapatalk. They sold out and switched. They didn't sell out. They didn't sell out. Brett Green's a nice guy. He didn't sell out. But he switched his forum software to Tapatalk. And it's all advertising based now, kind of a thing. So yeah, That's all I think of for that. I don't use Missing Link very often. In fact, Tapatalk, it rotated twice. When he went to Tapatalk for all the Missing Link dudes that are out there, the original, we had to switch all our contacts over. I did that the first time, and I don't think I used the site for maybe 3 to 6 months or what. I wasn't on it very often, Hyperscaler, Missing Links. And then all of a sudden my logins didn't work anymore, and I ain't fucking doing it. I mean, you can go in and look and stuff, but that's why I don't post on there anymore. Yeah, Rick started a new project. God, it was quick because he just finished his T55E thingy. Watched the episode where Adam Simmons built. Yeah, that's a good one, Arnell. His enthusiasm for that was really impressive. I think the one thing I like about Adam is he's genuine. He's a very genuine personality. Is there any echoes or microphone issues? I had some last night when I was filming some stuff, and I re-plugged in and restarted everything and redid everything this morning. So hopefully it sounds okay to me. Yeah, it's all the Tapatalk stuff, Sylvain. There's not much you can do about that unless you use an ad blocker, and I'm not familiar with all this stuff. If you have the track separately, Jim, you know what I'm saying? I mean, don't be shy to ditch a kit and keep the parts. I know it's more work sometimes because you got to start over, but these new Panzer, what do we got? Somebody said Academy's got a new one. Tamiya has a newer one, I think, pretty sure. A few years ago now, but it's like an F or something like that. Is it an EF? I don't think it was a C. I forget what Panzer II they did. Audio's good. Okay, sounds fine. Okay. Yeah, I had filmed some stuff last night for Patreon, and the audio was terrible. It was like, I don't know what happened, and I didn't touch the thing, so it's unusual. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just goes weird. Yeah, okay, cool. The audio's crispy. Good. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So my efforts to clean it up worked. Okay, here we go. Switch over here. Grab that over there. Switch over, my friend. Switch. There we go. Okay, go to this guy. And a little focus lock. Okay, gotta run. See you later. All right, Sal, have a good one, brother. Hope you have a good day, my friend. It is, what, Thursday? Have a good Thursday to all you guys in the Asian Pacific region. Panzer Dance, built the Panther G, had 2 tracks, pins, tapped, paint, yeah. Yeah, so that would be... anything like that too, and just like I said, I typically avoid the glue conversation with track pins because what happens is if you get 2 that are kind of like stuck and they don't move and they're plastic or resin, you risk breaking them under stress. But just thickening them up usually works, and then once they're on the model and once you're done, you should usually be good to go. So let's get caught up on this guy because I did a few things. There's a couple things I've left unpainted that I won't paint today just because it's tedious and I just got lazy and I didn't do it. But I did finish the decals. I went through the whole model and finished the decals, so I'll talk about that. Then last night I filmed a Patreon video for taking these dudes from here, from this colorway, into the Desert Rust colorway. So this was kind of the pre-shade, if you will, the burnishing with the metal tracks and the full model stuff. Yeah, and so coming in, okay, everybody good? Okay, just checking. Okay, cool. So that's what I did on that. I also did on the actual road wheels here, if this will move the light over here with me. I'm gonna hold on here, move that arm a little bit. Okay, see that nice and bright. Okay, so you can see here where I've come in and chewed some of the rubber up and put some wear and tear in the rubber road wheels. I had probably rushed this a little bit in terms of moving this along, which is totally cool, no big deal. Because stuff like this is, adding damage later on is not a problem. In fact, I thought about adding damage and dents to the fenders, but it's such a clean build all around. I figured if I start getting into that and it's all built up and painted, I'm going to get into more trouble. But the rubber parts, tire parts, in particular, rubber painted parts are just plastic. I went through with the Dremel tool and did a little nicks and burrs and little chunks and stuff out on the rubber, and then did a little spot painting on that. But that's all on Patreon, so that's what part of that process is, where those dudes are getting some specialty. It's a quick kind of down and dirty, and that is like a 30-minute little video. But and then the other second part of it was taking the track colorway from this dude to this dude. And I'll do a little bit on this today just to show you what I was doing. And then today what we're gonna do is I've got a fresh OPR palette. It's been soaking over here for a minute, probably about an hour or so. So what I did here was this particular stream, I thought it would be, because I'm always showing you all the colors. And a lot of you guys ask, you like, do you use all the, and I respect that. So what I've done is I've made a specific palette of colors for this particular model specifically with these oil paints. So I've got my dust colors with the white. I've got my rust and dark grease tones. I've got my peaches, my flesh, kind of a flesh tone oil, which kind of coincides with the desert pink. And then I got a little bit, there's some decals on here, and there's some green paint. Well, it's kind of a NATO green, and then the wheels over here have some green. So we have some colors in here, and these are kind of lighter rust tones. Plus I can use these as blending colors, the yellow, oranges, and ochres and stuff for blending. But we'll come back to those a little bit in a minute. Let that keep going for a sec. I'd probably give it another 20, 30 minutes while I bullshit with you guys. What else we got? Okay, so that's what I got caught up on. And then on this guy, so the tracks are halfway done. And then on this little dude, so what I did here was went through and I added the rest of the decals. I think we had, I think you guys watched me put this guy down, and then the Desert 8th Army decal down. I put that one down. These are Tamiya. These are all Tamiya decals from the actual Cromwell model, copyright 97. I think the decal, I think my kit was probably mid 2000s. So these are probably 10 to 12 year old decals. And then I did a matte coat. I'm not seeing any raised detail, but I know these are still, when you get up close, these are thick mofos. And I don't have, and I mentioned last time, I don't have my Gunzi stuff. In fact, it's in the box with the Hainu coming in from USA Gundam Store, because they import the Gunzi stuff. So I won't get that till Thanksgiving. Let's see here. Let's see how. You can just see that one. So if I'm honest, this, not that it ever was, but I wouldn't put this on a contest. You're gonna, if you're a contestant and the price is right, you will lose, my friend, because you can see that guy, and it's just enough. There's just enough residual, and there's probably, and I will be honest with you, there's probably a dozen applications of Microsol to soften those down. This guy, and I don't have anything more aggressive at this point in time. However, these are the Bison decals / star decals. This one basically disappeared. It's a little, actually, I need to dust because it's been sitting out for a week. So that dude did good. The films disappeared. It hunkered down nicely. That's good. These guys are loose. And then I used from the same Bison decal set, the number 2s, the turret number. And I wanted to kind of push the limits of, can you wrap decal over racer? Did pretty good. I don't think they'd even paint that cleanly in the field. If they had to paint that number around, it'd probably look even worse than that. So that came out pretty good. Happy with that. You can you get just a varietal of discoloration, but I actually think that's in my paint. I don't think that's in the decal film. Yeah, because that one disappeared nicely. That one came out the best. So those Bison ones are nice. That's all Microsol. That hunkered that stuff down. There's a little wrinkle in this one, so you can see another reason not to compete with this guy. Yeah, we're human. These are all straight over matte coats, and this is probably the worst one there. You can see that one quite easily. Just the Microsol wouldn't get it down. It just wouldn't cut that through. And I wouldn't even call that silvering. It's not really silvering. It's just thick. It's just a thick, double C thick. The yellows are sprayed on. That's a spray mask. And then we put this up on the nose over here. So I actually used the instructional markings from the Tamiya instructions. These are where the 52, I think it's 52nd Squadron Regiment. I think it's there's regimental marking here on the left. That's the 8th Army marking. Yeah, that turned out pretty good. The fronts came out a little better. The tank number marking from the factory disappeared pretty good. I flooded that ledge pretty solid too with some matte varnish. So that's how that turned out. Half a dozen one, 6 of another. Don't use Tamiya kit decals unless you've got the really, and that's what I was talking about, is you really need the Japanese decal solvent stuff to really crush those down, and it thins that super thick film. Or you can sand them. I thought about sanding them for a minute. I gave up on that idea just because life's too short to be sanding this stuff. Like I said, this is a stream project. I'm not super concerned. They came out good enough. Like from this distance here, you can't see anything. It's only under that really hyper close magnification do you really see anything. Yeah, like I said, I don't have anything else on hand, and that was more my issue than not knowing what I'm doing. Because I think I know what I'm doing half the time, don't I? Yeah, everybody loves solve set. Oh man, stiff. Been working out. All get jacked up, bro. You lift. Chris Storch said I just did the Tamiya M10. I can see some decal. Yeah, they're thick, double C thick, my friends. And I probably, no shit, 2 days worth, probably on the turret sides alone, before I even put the matte varnish down, at least probably 24 microsol passes, real thin, not getting crazy. Wet the brush, lay it in there, let that air dry or hairbrush it or hair dry it on all these areas. These are all Tamiyas, and I knew it going in. We talked about it last time. It's okay. I mean, again, you don't really. That dude right there. You didn't even see that. Like, you have to like crank up on this thing and do the judge thing and be the bullshit and all that crap. But the blue ones, the Bison ones, they hunker down nicely, so I'm okay with that. And that's how Cromwell spare tires were stowed, by the way. If you're unfamiliar, they sometimes will show up on the front, but most of the time they put them back over the turret lifting rings on the back. We did the tools last week. I didn't get around to that part. And I'm missing some handles. Apparently I drilled some holes for some handles. That's why I'm like, why is there holes there? I'm like, oh yeah, there's supposed to be handles there. I think the Tamiya kit part has a solid handle right there for that, to lift that engine cover. It's probably the air cleaners under there, I'm guessing. If I know this is the, and we talked about this for a second, just to refresh, because I did do some more reading over the week. The Liberty engine was the substitute motor for this tank, and if you have a Liberty engine, you are a Centaur. It is not the gun as often. Now the Tamiya kits list them out by separating by the gun, even though they do correctly discuss it. So this is the 75 mil Cromwell, but it's a Cromwell because of a Meteor engine, which is development of the Merlin aircraft engine. The Liberty was from, where did the Liberty come from? Liberty might have been a dedicated tank engine. It was pretty weak though. It was powering the smaller tanks, but as the Cromwell got heavier than a lot of the other British tanks, they switched to the Meteor. But the Meteor wasn't ready because Merlin production was going crazy. What's up, Josh? How are you, brother? Yeah, and it's funny because Gunzi, Mr. Mark Setter and Mr. Mark Softer. It does wonders. I've never used anything but those two and the Microsol, so I've never actually used Solvaset. Probably because I've never had to. I usually use the Gunzi stuff. However, when I moved into this apartment, I noticed my Gunzi stuff was about a decade old, and one of them, I think the Softer was starting to yellow in the bottle, so I pitched them. And then I ordered new ones 3 months ago, but I put it in the box with the High New, like an idiot. And then Bandai got pinched, and the High New never showed up until this week, so that's why I don't have it. Yeah, so I do it in really light passes. In other words, when you're doing that, I don't think it'll mess up. There is matte coat on there now. So I spot varnished all that stuff with the matte clear coat. Okay, so I spilled the bottle again, by the way. This was a brand new full bottle about a month ago. 2 spillets. So Uncle Mike just... So I get that brush wet and then wipe it over the decal, let that air dry. So I do pretty thin applications just because you risk ruining the paint. It doesn't matter. I've ruined other paint jobs besides, and honestly, this is Mission Models paints for all the bitching and moaning you guys you see in the internet and stuff like this. This one's perfect, dude. This one's been money. I've had no problems. So I don't know if you guys are having issues, and you guys are having issues. It's a personal problem. Okay. So that's the caught up on this guy in terms of catching everything up. But I will say too, to every dudes out there, there are times when polycaps are a beautiful thing. And this is one of those times. Pulling the road wheels off and on. I'll probably take this guy off here too. I just double side tape down on the piece of wood. I don't drill my armor underneath it's just a piece of double side tape under here. I'll pull it off eventually. Trying to be a little bit more careful with stream stuff to not touch the models as much. Fingerprints are not good for anything, especially if you're a criminal. Mark Center and Microsol and have good results so far. Yeah. Yeah, I'd recommend, again, if you do a lot of, and this comes from Hasegawa, this comes from Bandai, this comes from Tamiya. If you do a lot of Japanese decal, this isn't really a cartograph conversation. The microsols work great on microsol decals. In fact, they just beautiful. And the bison stuff, that one back there is beautiful, even up close. It looks painted on. Jason, you're funny, dude. We'll get you guys sorted on that stuff. I think it's, half a dozen one, six of another. I've not had any problems, my friend. I don't know what you're doing. What kind of bullshit you guys are pulling over there. Okay. I think we did clear up a lot of that, though. The conversation we had, was it episode 35? Remind me. 35, where broke down the alcohol and the lacquer thinner. Just big no-nos with mission models, and you should be okay after that. Because I know there's a lot of, especially isopropyl IPA, it's a big product in the hobby and just in a general context, and a lot of us are habit-formed adult males, and you can't undo the whole old dog new trick thing, and so we use our isopropyl alcohol for all the time, and all of a sudden you don't realize it's causing issues with water-based products. Because you will see this with other water-based paints. It will break down other dudes too, by the way. Justin Thunder Liger, someone got a new computer, a little free time, and can finally, hey, what's up, brother? Welcome back. We didn't miss you. I did notice the name hasn't been up on the thing for a while. Jim says he's been using the microscale method since '78. Yep. And that's where a lot of this comes from. I remember, I probably still have one or two of them in the stash, mostly for nostalgia. There was my LA boys, Torrance, Old Town Hobbies. You guys remember that place? My dad took me there as a kid. Probably one of the best hobby shops in the West Coast for a long time. I don't think it's there anymore. But I used to get a couple of my microscale decal sheets from my Monogram Century Series fighters. That's when I was a kid. That's what I was into. And Joe's got a new airbrush for the acrylic suite. John says they started using Solvaset in the 90s because it was the only thing available and never used anything. But yeah, and Solvaset does work wonders, by the way. I had always had Microsol and Microset. And then when I was doing a lot of Japanese kits, it was advised to me from someone else who's familiar. It said, no, get the Gunzi stuff. And I think the Tamiya decal solutions are India Pale Ale. A double India Pale Ale, my friend. Or a triple sometimes, because Portland's a little crazy. But welcome back, Justin. Good to have you, brother. Okay. So let's do this. I like to start with the track part first, because they tend to take the longest to dry on camera or during the stream. So like I said, I showed my boys, my Patreon dudes, how we did this last night. I'll give you a little just kind of refresh, a little quickie. There's the extra long one. I don't know why I've got the extra long one. Let's go this way. So a lot of times when, because this is what we do in desert, right? We're gonna have to be on point. Desert track sets in particular, desert colorways in particular, and this is we'll get into the dust colors. We do have some pigments ready to go. I do have some other brands of pigments I have introduced into today's episode, so we will talk about that shortly. And I'll show you first up just a quick way to get some color on these tracks. It's one of my favorite ways. It's this set here, the Old Faithful. But you can use any colorways. A yellow, like a nice pale orange, and then a nice rust color. I think the last few episodes I've been using Mission Models colors, and I'm just switching rotation of my products around a little bit because I have them on hand and I need to use them up before they go bad. Because these guys in particular, the life color, if there's a weakness of life color, the weakness of life color, sounds like a Discovery show. These are a plastic bottle with a plastic cap and no jimmy thing in there to seal that up. They do air dry. In fact, I originally got all my first life color set, Pacific Coast Models. Ken Lawrence introduced them to the United States about 20 years ago, something like that. He was a big importer of Italian products into the scale model hobby, Pacific Coast Models. Some of you are familiar with the aircraft kits. They did some Hurricanes and Spitfires in 32nd scale. I don't think they're around anymore, but he introduced Fruit Model and life color paint specifically to the United States as an importer. So my first run being from Los Angeles, and he was up the road up in Oxnard or Ventura County on the West Coast. All my original life colors have dried up in the bottle, and that was years ago. In fact, I don't have many. This is a relatively newer set. The Life Color sells everything in a box set of 6 besides the individual bottles. I recommend, if you do like Life Color, because they are an excellent paint as well, in a water-based conversation. They're a really nice paint to have in terms of you can get them. They're cool. They're good to have. Good colors. Their box sets are nice. You know, they have the wood set, the rope set, the rust set. The rust set in particular, the reason I continue to keep coming back to them, and I think even a few other guys have mentioned this too, is they're heavily pigmented, so they dry special matte finish to the rust, and that's what we did here. And then the dust color is actually we threw in a little love with this guy. A little bit of like a gray dust color was thrown down too. So I got my little metal palette I love over here. I don't know why I keep coming to these metal ones. I don't like the plastic ones, and I don't use a wet palette yet because I think that Kickstarter, I think I talked about that too. Again, I forgot, damn it. I was gonna give you guys the name of the company that I supported on Kickstarter. You can see this. Oh, you guys aren't even, never mind. You're not even on camera. Don't worry about it. I never really brush paint enough to have a wet palette. You know, and I know it's much more common nowadays in the last year or so. It was mostly Warhammer, miniature artists, figure painters of ill repute. And nefarious reputations would use wet palettes all the time. So now the rest of us do, because that's how we are, right? We always pick up, hey, saw all those guys over there using that. So I ordered one finally. But it was one of those things, it's very rare that I do the social media advertising and I click on it and go, okay. This one I liked. I think it's an American company. And they make little handles for miniatures, and they're big in the Warhammer 40K crowd, all that stuff. But anywho, it was a nice looking palette. I was like, okay, it was like 20 bucks, whatever it was. It wasn't red. Is it red grass? Somebody asked me that last time. I don't think it's red grass. I do not think it's, and my phone's right here, so I can't hop onto Instagram and jam over to that. I'm planning on getting Tamiya decal setting solution very soon. It does indeed work better in Japanese model kit decals. And so my interpretation is, and I could be totally wrong, so call me out if you do know this. Tamiya, given that Japan's a small, relatively small region, I don't think there's a ton of manufacturers making decal setting solutions. So I would guess Tamiya's and Gunzi's are going to be really similar, if not from the same manufacturer. That's just for shits and giggles. But I'd expect them to work the same, meaning that they're going to work really good on all that kind of stuff, because they do love a really thick carrier film. And I don't know why they do that. I know they're durable for the kids, but yeah, they do have a short shelf life. With the Mission Model stuff too, by the way, because it is water-based and is in a plastic container and stuff, but the difference is, and this does make a difference, is the cap seals, the way it seals on this guy is a lot nicer. Plus, you never really take them on and off. You just have that little bit there. So you just have that little air hole, so that you will get a little bit better. You should get a little bit better shelf life. That's another reason I store them upside down, because it does kind of keep the paint. And you can do that. You can do the same thing with Life Color. You can store them upside down too, by the way. That'll be fine. But I did notice the originals, the really thick, almost gel paint type Life Colors. If you guys are familiar, the original colors are all a really thick, like a liquid paste that you thin down. The sets that come in the boxes are all pre-thin now, or a thinner mixture, I should say. So it is a little bit different consistency. You guys probably don't remember the contentiousness of airbrushing Life Color paints. David Parker and I would go on to all the places, and we'd defend it up, and this is years ago. I can't get the shit to work. I'm gonna tell you what, all the problems everybody have with Life Color paints and airbrushing are all the same relationships you have with the Mission Models paints and airbrushing, where it's alcohol you guys are cleaning, or cleaning with lacquer thinners, and it will break down Life Color in the same process too, by the way, in case you don't know. Same with Vallejo, and same with I think AK's water-based stuff, but you'll have problems with it. Okie doke. Enough bullshitting around. Okay, so I've got, zoom one more time. Okay, so what you can see here is I've got my little palette set here, got my colors out, light to dark, keep it simple, and that's how the process is. There's no real right or wrong. You can go dark to light if you want to. I know Steve, you did. I said that on something else one time, and I think Steve, if you're still around, he went dark to light. So you just depends on what you're looking for. Depends on what your end result is. I tend to teach light to dark for simplicity's sake and for teaching's sake, and then let you run with it. Because once you kind of learn light to dark, you can then maneuver on your own projects. So that's what that looks like here. You can get a little bit of tap water. Put that right there. Got my sponge, old packing sponge. This one's seen better days. Get it wet first just to get a little bit pliable. I squeeze out a lot of the water, so it's just a damp sponge at this point in time. And I should do one more step. I forgot. Thin these way down, by the way, too. You're really looking for a rust wash on this, is really what this is. Give it a little quick stir. Okay. Okie doke. Kind of pre-wet the sponge a little bit. Pretty good. Not enough color down. Just a little dab will do you. Go right to the orange. I try to get a little splotchy. I could probably zoom in now. You don't need this to be perfect. This is a real down and dirty, easy process. Now, to be fair, these are burnished metal tracks, no big deal. You can do this over anything, whether it's a vinyl painted. All you need are your tracks to be in a base color. In this particular case, the burnishing gives it kind of a dark chocolatey with a hint of gray. It's a nice smoky flavor, hint of cedar. So for your tracks, any kind of dark gray tone, and you play this up. So, you know, if I think when I did this originally, I even said when these came out of the bath, I'm like, well, those are dark. I probably wouldn't spray them this dark if I'm painting tracks, whether it's vinyl, plastic, resin, doesn't matter. I would go a much more of you know, half as dark as this guy. Gives you a little bit more leeway. In this particular case, I'm a pro. You're paying me the big bucks for this, so I'm able to manage those into these, which is fine. But this is how I did that. And then the dark one, dab that out more than the rest. You want a little bit more of a dry brush on this guy. Now this is a water-based acrylic, so this is a boom, done, and go. In this case, you can kind of see up close, a bit nasty wet there. Grab that hair dryer. So an enamel paint on a plastic or resin can cause problems. An acrylic lacquer, Tamiya paints, AK paints, stuff like that, it's also won't harm the stuff. It's mostly what thinner you're using if you're going to do this. So this is a water-based system on a metal track, so it's basically impervious, no problems there. So that's kind of the first run. You can see it kind of takes them into kind of a more rusty tone, nice splotchy, nice. You want that irregularity, and you can be as OCD as you want to. Don't get me wrong. You can take a brush and you can come through and do these kinds of things. This is all on you. You don't need me for this part. This is kind of, and this is for signature styles. Armor guys in particular, how you deal your tracks is going to be a thing. You know, if you want to have a, you know, like classic Adam Wilder signature track style, we all know what it looks like. It's wet, muddy down the middle, dried on the outside. That's a classic Adam Wilder look. He pioneered that, in my opinion. So you're all copying him, but that's his signature style. But you can come in here and you can paint some of these up if you wanted to. You can stripe them out if it wants to lay down some color. There it goes. You can do this kind of stuff if you want. It's up to you. And the reason I like the sponge, because when you get up on these, you get a nice little splotchy, speckly, gritty look. Actually pulling some of that off there a little, not quite dry. But then this color too, I forgot this color. Same idea. A little bit of a dust color paint. Specifics don't matter too much other than the fact I wanted, so what I'm trying to do, and you'll see this in the colorway all through the oils, the pigments, and the dust paints here that I'm using, is kind of what I'm really trying to do is I've got like a desert pink. So I'm really limited in what dust colors will work on this model. If you go with like a beach sand yellow colorway, I could stop it, talk about this for a second. That's a very yellow color. That's the Mig's old beach sand color. And then you've got some life color pigments in here. If it'll zoom in on the label here. These are all acrylic pigments, so it should all play well together. So this is a Lebanon dust, also kind of. Now the one thing I noticed with this guy was that the color in the jar was way more yellow than what you see through the clear plastic. So it is important that you do open these up and take a look at them. And then I have a white, because this actually looks almost like a blue, and then when you open it up, and I use the white as a lightener to lighten the tone. It's actually a pure white inside. So the color of the plastic distorts these colors, by the way. And then I have another Vallejo color here, which is their classic desert. And so that's what I talk about with so what I did was I took my light color, my pigment stash, and I've been using it on other models. And this question came up in previous streams where, do you use the same colorway for each model? And the answer is no. What I did was I actually poured them out, and then I poured all those colors into half of the light mix that I've got. Here, I'll show you. You can see. It's kind of leading down the road of why the paint color is important. So that's my light color there, and then that's the redone. You can see how much lighter this one is, but it's got kind of a gray, at least from what I'm seeing. Okay, that's pretty close. It's kind of, that's not bad. Yeah, it's a pretty accurate color right there. Not too yellow, but also not too gray. But with the track stuff, because of the warm tones underneath, this goes back to the warm, cool conversation. All these all start to layer up and play together. What's up, Vivian? How are you, buddy? You're fine, man. You're not late. You are good to go. Welcome, welcome. I'll switch back to the sponge. I prefer the sponge. Thin that little guy down too. So this is just adding a little bit of that dust color on top. So this is where you start to really get that pale rust embedded dust in the track look. And because this is all a matte acrylic paint, these all play well together. Like there's really no problems. That's actually coming out really nice. So now you come back in with your, let me get this out of the way. We'll dry this up real good. Now these are metal tracks. I can go in with the hairdryer and get aggressive with it and just go. It's not gonna hurt, this doesn't hurt anything. So if you do have a resin track or some of the plastic tracks, be careful with the hairdryer. Don't push it way down. Like I'm trying to speed this up for you. So that dries that process pretty good. It's a real nice kind of interesting little, I actually go for as much disparity in worrisome colorways with tracks as I can get manually, because you will find that once these get on the tank, if it looks really stark and high contrast, like I got different rust tones and all this stuff, it almost always disappears once it's on the model visually. So I like to get as much range of tones in my tracks as I can. I actually try to get them pretty crazy, and I actually think that looks great, because then what I do is I'll take my little sponge dude again, bring this back over here, kind of get some of that liquid out of there. I don't need a bone dry, but you do need to dry it back up a little bit for the final step. And that's to go with the dark color again, the dark rust tone again. And we're just gonna do like a dry brush stipple. Now this is the love part. Come back in and you just gently do a little dry brush stipple with the dark rust tone. And this kind of harmonizes a little bit of like a speckling filter, if you will. It's I don't even know if that's a term. So what you do is you kind of come in here. They're still slightly wet. So now you get those little tiny little dark rust speckles back into that. And you also hit the top of the guide teeth. Now what you can do, so if your play is, if your next scenario is, if you want Again, I'm going with, I don't want this, but I'm going to show you it anyway, because for this project, I actually don't want polished bright metal. To comment on tank treads that are polished, that have a bright tone, that's because it's a high use scenario. In other words, the tracks are running constantly. Oftentimes in the desert, what you'll get, depending on the type of terrain it's in, if it's in a hard, compact terrain where it's not getting, I don't know, what's the term I'm looking for, where the tracks are going into the dirt and getting ground through, all that polishes that metal and takes all that surface rust off. But in the desert though, often what happens is because the ground's so hard, those tracks are floating across the top. So the inner surfaces, like up in here, don't get like a high polish look. The cleats can on the outside. You can do some polishing on the cleats if you want to. By the way, you have to repeat the process on the other side. But what you can do is just take your little sanding sponge here, come in here. Now this is still wet, so it's knocking most of that off. I can get a stronger sponge actually. Eventually you start cutting through the burnishing. And this is why metal tracks are so nice. Now you can do this with a pencil. You can do this with polished metal paints, burnishing paints. You know, you have 3 or 4 different options to do this in terms of, but with the metal track like this, little sanding stick, little sanding sponge. So you'll still get all the love on the inside, but you're gonna rub off most of that beautiful colorway on the outside. But that's up to you. That's on your references. That's on your policy in terms of what you want your tank to look like in terms of the terrain. And all you have to do is just study photos of everything in the terrains of what's happening. So if it's going to be in a high sand content, that sand's going to polish a lot of that back out sometimes. You know, in this case right here, that's floating on top, so it's going to be a very dusty looking track. You know, same up like in here. This is what I'm talking about. That ground is probably super hard, and those rocks are going to chunk that rubber out. But you can just see how it's just a dust scenario. Your rusty metal won't really polish back out too much. In fact, here's a Crusader up in here, and you can see even in the shadows, that's a pretty. You're not seeing the high polished bright spots on the tracks. You'll catch it. The photos will catch it though. I'm trying to see if we can find some with it. The other thing that I like with North Africa in particular, this is all British tanks in North Africa, by the way. It's you get kind of a clayed in, packed in dirt look a little bit. The one thing I liked about North Africa is in certain times of the year, especially through the winter months, you'll get a high dew content in the morning. So you get a lot of, if you studied North Africa, read a lot about North Africa, that's what I'm looking at right in here. Again, there's some of these photos. This is why you got to have these books, my friends. You got to get this stuff. You want that kind of gritty, you know, you want to get up in there with that grittiness to kind of capture, get off the look of that. You want to get in there and get kind of that grittiness. So I've probably got a darker colorway. This is probably a fresh, so there'd be a little bit more of a dust way, but in terms of the actual colorway, I'm good with that because you get all that kind of impacted grittiness in there. You're not getting a lot of metal color, in other words, if that makes sense. But you get a lot of high dew content in the mornings and stuff like that in North Africa, and they'll get a lot of surface rust overnight. You'll see this in the modern campaigns. You can catch a lot of that, like on the end connectors of Abrams and Bradleys, in particular, you know, Challengers. So you know, that's got to stay on that. So that's how you do all that stuff there. Any questions? Everybody's just listening intently, which is fine by me. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's in terms of the armor world, track weathering to me is one of the more enjoyable processes. It's hard to be right or wrong with it. You know, I mean, it could get a little argumentative. Some guys are adamant, you know, no trucks rust and all that kind of stuff. And I've just seen too much examples of it. That's just you can't blanket statement tracks like that personally. Yes, a lot of trucks don't rust, but especially if they're a constant use scenario. But it depends on the earth. It depends on the campaign. It depends on the time of year. There's other factors involved too. So what are we doing? Pigments. Okay. So let's roll into doing some dust pigments first, and then we'll do some oils. Let me get this guy out of the way here. here. Set this up for you. I can probably take the turret off too. Okay, so we get our hole kind of set up here. I don't need it horizontal for this process too much. So I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do first is we're going to take these pigments and we're going to put some dust down, really, is what we're doing. So what I need for that is you'll need your little airbrush here. Get the airbrush on, put some thinner in that. A little spritz, I don't need much. Don't need too much. In fact, I'm just kind of putting this in the tanks. The hardest part of desert weathering is to show the dust on the light colorways. That's the challenge of desert weathering. And you get asked that quite a bit. I know some of you guys are working on projects like this, so it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Let me just see what I did. Let me check out a thing or two here. Okay, so yeah, if I recall, the thing with desert weathering, the challenge is because of the colorways of how hard it is to get a dusty color into. That's a pretty effective look right there, and we'll do some of that today. What we're kind of looking up is in here, where you're getting kind of that collection of the dust and stuff into the corners, and you want some of that colorway to come through, and you want to collect some of the dust here. So it looks like what I was doing here is it's a combination of pigments and filters, and so that's what we'll do today. We're in this colorway here where you have, and the reason I chose the Rommel's initial foray was that these were the gray tanks that landed, and then they were quickly painted as sand, and then that wears off, giving you a lot of love to work with. Yeah, I'm just seeing how much dust I put down pigment wise, and it's not much because it just doesn't really show up. But what I did with this dude, so what I was doing here, and you get to see this today, and hopefully I did my work correctly. So I went in and lightened up my lightest shade of my pigment collection here, intentionally to see if we can get some play. And what I talk about with this is getting some contrast in the dust. Getting the dust light enough that it actually shows up. Now this is going to take some of you out of your comfort zone, because normally most of you probably, did I lose another pin? Yep, I did. It's probably the same pin, keeps falling out now. But most of you probably wouldn't consider a color like this pale gray, which is what this color is, as a dust shade. So it's getting you a little bit out of your comfort zone to move from what the companies push on you as kind of sand colors. And it's unfortunate because that doesn't, it's not what it looks like, by the way. That's again, to my commentary on why do I mix up pigments the way I do, where I put 5 or 6 different colors into one, is because that's a nasty ass color. Number one, let's be honest. I would not make that my dust color. That's just a bad selection right there in terms of this is your choice. But when you mix it with all the other guys, you get this. Now you're in the love range, and that's what you want to be doing. So again, to refresh everybody out there listening, this is 35 mil film container. I put in 5 or 6 different tones. So we've got some white in here. Beach sand is a common one. There's light European earths and dust and stuff like that. There's these colorways here. This is Lebanon sand. Get those up in there and then mix these up like a paint. And or you can even little shake, little Jimmy shake. It'll be fine too. So what I'll do is I got this in this little mixing cup here today because I'm actually out of the canisters. I gotta buy some more. And then I'll dump that back in there, and then I'll just reuse it. What else have we got? Did I miss anything? Question, good night. Oh, you're out here. Hey guys, Solvaset is a commercial trading brand of botoxyethanol, okay? It's an ether, my bad. And one of the main components of Vallejo Flow Improver and Airbrush Cleaner. There you go, there's a little chemistry lesson for you fellas. I love that Panzer IV too, by the way, and I forget where it ended up. Speaking of selling models, somebody's got it. What do you think about creating, question Vivian says, what do you think about creating polished strips where the road wheels make contact with the tracks? That's what I was showing you there with the sanding. And that's what I was talking about specifically. I see some people do that, but don't really see a reference. If you're asking if it happens, if you're asking if the internals faces, the contact areas get polished, you can see as the light plays with this, sometimes you don't see it. So sometimes it's the angle, because these are flat on the ground and you're a 6-foot person with the camera and then taking a picture of a real tank. Sometimes the angle, you don't really see it. You have to be at certain angles. I'm a giant 50-foot man standing 300 feet above the tracks, and so I can maneuver them to catch the light to show you. But when I go low, and my little zoom doesn't want to zoom, when I go low, you know, turn that to like a low visual angle, you see it a little bit. So part of it is the photos, part of it is getting up on an active tank with steel road wheels. The rubber pads probably don't polish them as much. I was mostly just showing you a technique, and I don't normally polish my runs internally too much. I do a little dusting of it, just like a scuff. It's usually what I personally do. What will happen though, what you will see in these tracks that pin fell out too. What you will see, and I didn't show you, is the guide teeth. The guide teeth get ground up quick and fast because that's metal on metal. So the internal ribbing of a road wheel is usually metal on metal. And usually what you'll get is the sides of the guide teeth will focus, my friend. Focuses on everything else but what I try to show you. But anyway, you catch that right there. That's what will happen to almost all many tracks, unless you know for a fact it's rubber inside. And even then, that's going to polish that metal pretty good. I don't think there's rubber in the internal ribbings of tank road wheels. Usually that's a metal on metal situation inside for almost every tank, as far as I know. You can even see it in there. There's a little bit of a metal rib in there. And then in here too, there'll be metal on metal contact. So all the guide teeth will almost always be polished out. As far as the actual contact area, it depends a little bit. You can play that up. You have options, Vivian. Again, study the tank that you're building, and study to a pretty good degree. Question, or should I say statement, you can seal the caps using cling film or... Yeah, for sure. Molten wax stored in your fridge also helps. Yeah, the fridge is gonna be full of model supplies, by the way. Just don't get in trouble with the misses. That's not on me. Okay, what do we got here? We need the soft brush. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go through all, you know, I think the lesson. You know what I learned with the life color lesson? Let me tell you what I learned with the life color lesson. With this conversation about life color, you know, in this particular case, because the Tamiya bottles with the plastic, they have the sealer inside with the plastic cap on the glass. I've got bottles from the 80s that are still good, I think. What I learned, Tamiya did it right. We only need like 75 colors. We don't need 300. It's just bullshit with all the color name, which is fine. Don't buy 200 colors of paint and then use 20 bottles of paint. That's what I learned. It's not that they dry out. It's that we buy this excess. To all my paint brand manufacturers out there listening, shut up, Mike. It's the truth. Get 10 or 20, 30 colors that you need that you're gonna use a lot, and then every now and then buy a new camo color for what you're doing. And don't do what I do where you get the whole range. Like, okay, you know, because then you can't use them all. That's what I learned. Can't use them all, my friends. Okay, pigments. Get a little something on the brush. I'm gonna knock some out. I don't need quite so much here, but we'll do some experiment. So here we go with what I should do to put my money where my mouth is I should test this color out first. Pigments in particular, when you put them on dry and then you fix them with the wet and then you let them dry again, they'll shift colors. Now I'm going somewhat on experience with this. So again, every time I do pigments, no matter what, this is a hard and fast rule. Always a matte surface. Pigments will not stick to anything that is not matte. They just don't work on anything else. That looks actually pretty nice. So you can see how it's kind of tone on tone. Get this guy over here, zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so I've got my airbrush with my little stuff in there. Crank them. Oops, that's too much. You'll see some movement. Okay, you can see the droplets hitting. And I'm at like 0.5 psi. I'm so low, it's not even funny. It's literally like, this is the definition of a spit. In fact, there's almost, I was gonna say, do I even have any air? I went pretty low on that one. I'm gonna lose a little bit here. So you can see just what I'm talking about in this quick demonstration of what a liquid fixer does to a really, really light color. See how it, when it dries, it didn't kick back to the color you thought it was. So that's why you have to kind of, I went in kind of slow, cautious. You should do this on a test model. Anytime you're doing this for the first time with it, like I've mixed up my pigments for the first time, it's a good idea to have a sample something somewhere just to slap it down, fix it, and see what it does before you commit. Yeah, tiny little droplets. But the tone of it is, you're right, Panzer. I actually think the color, I actually did a good job on the colors. And if you recall with this process, I usually do 5-6 layers. So this is layer 2. And now that there's a little fixer in that, I can go probably a little more misty. There you go. Get that up close so you guys can see what it's doing. So a couple things happening here. One is I did a good job with the colors. I'm happy with the colors. I think that light tone on the pink shows up. You can see it. You can kind of see it's the dusty part of it, especially as it rotates off kilter. You see that that's what you want with your dust is you kind of, it disappears this way, but as you go off angle, you start to really catch the dust on the model, and that way you can see when it rotates around, you'll get that nice dust look. But you are going to get a tone on tone, and so you can see why I was kind of doing some wear and tear on the model. On this side too, I did a little of kind of brush work with the tracks and stuff. So that there test tells me my colors are good and the process will work fine for this type of project. Now, like I said, I probably should have tested this out, but I went a little bit on just kind of ballsy. Now we can move along. And I've got it angled this way so you guys can kind of see it too, by the way. But adding the one thing that was smart on this, because of colorway, again, to desert weathering specifically, not even winter stuff. This is really a desert conversation of getting that dust to show up on a really, like a Portland stone, which is a common British color, for example. Like how do you get, like you almost won't see the dust color too much. It's almost 1-to-1. So for model building sake, to get some clarity in this, is throwing in a little bit. Don't be afraid to put a little white pigments into your dust colors, because you can even see, you've seen a little bit of that whitish dust column coming out. And in this case too, the other thing is, you notice that is dust is just a thin layer of dust. You don't need a ton. You're just trying to get some love going here. Now what you will see though, is you'll see it on these dudes, because you have contrast now. And you'll see, we'll do one of the wheels here in a second with the dust, and you'll see the color scream out at you. Now technically, and if I was being anal about it, I probably would shift. In fact, we've got 2 road wheels there. I'll do both. I'll show you guys here in a sec. Remind me. So so again, big fat brush, let the randomness, don't scrub it in. Stippling is your friend. Matte surface so it grips. And then the fixer is just the same paint thinner as the brand of paint used. In this case, it's Mission Models. And then throw it in the airbrush, drop that PSI way down to 2, 3, 4 PSI from a distance. Just let it hit. You guys can see the droplets hitting the surface. That's what it looks like. And that's as much as you really, and that gives you a really nice splotchy, dusty, kind of real gritty. Any loose. You can see how, dude, that's just gold, baby. In fact, that's some of the nicer dust desert work I think I've actually done with pigments, to be truthful. Not to brag, but I think that actually, I'd be really happy with this on my model. Now, the beauty of this is, remember the conversation of light to dark. I've got all these little nooks and crannies and bolt head details and other stuff in here. We can come back in with some darker oils and start popping out with the pin wash, and start bringing some detail out, because on the Christie tanks and stuff like this of this nature, T34s, anything of this ilk, big fatties, Hetzers, you see a lot of the surface behind the tracks and road wheels, so you will get to see some of this. So we'll do some speckling and some staining, and we'll throw some stuff up in there just to add a little love to this and start telling the story of the life of it and that kind of stuff. Because the crew still has to maintain this, they still have to do their job. Keep that tank rolling. Okay, so we won't do the back. Well, here, let's just show you on the red, because that's the back of the road wheel. Let's get that dude down in there. So let's put a. That's some juicy love there. Let's try this. We'll do a direct liquid application so you guys can see what happens. Actually, let me just dump some in a cup. Hold on. Spare little mixers. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a little paint thinner into the thingy, just like that. There's another old brush. So this is another technique of, I usually prefer the eyedropper, but if you don't have eyedroppers and you just want to do something kind of down and dirty, back of the road wheel here. So I've got it kind of filled with the thing. Just touch that, let that flow in. Now I usually don't hold it, so I'm just holding this for demonstration purposes. Just gently touch around the sides and let that liquid soak into the surface. You don't want to flood it, you just want to get it wet to fix it down. Give it a second to kind of really do its thing. You have to be a little bit patient with it, which is, don't rush this. Again, I'd probably have this on the tank because I know that I'm going to get my fingerprints on this dude in a heartbeat. Okay, so that's good. That's how you fix that down. That's how much you want. See how it's not floating around? It's not too much. Take that hair dryer. So this will give a different look, by the way. When you apply the fixer directly as a liquid, so this is pigments the other way. And it's not my preference way, but this doesn't look actually half bad. Let me get in it. It's a little grittier. This is a little bit more of a caked on dust look. It's still a little bit wet too. I haven't fully dry. But you can see it's got a completely different look. And it's actually the beginnings of kind of a dried mud look, to be honest with you. And you can see how the color turned a lot more intense in terms of kind of a yellowy paste color. Whereas over here, that's not bad. But because of the pinker, redder primer color underneath, that color starts to shift. So if you put this guy on, get him on there. Hold on. Push that all the way on. Polycap, okay, that guy's on. Okay. So let's go back to the first process way. So what you really want to do is you want to get all that's why the road wheels are off. That's why these kits are beautiful to work on, because you can take that off and then you can throw these back on once they're done. But I'll just show you so I don't have to hold it the first way again. So on a dark color, you can see how stark that is. So you're going to see it this time versus on the hole over here. And that's because there's high contrast now with the dark colorway. I'm just trying to get little spots here for the tire parts. So if you want a real dry kind of, it looks like there might be a fingerprint. That's why you don't hold this stuff, as you guys already know. But mine got a little bit of oil on there. Same thing with the airbrush with the fixer. It's going to blow some off. You can see how it starts to make it disappear. But it does fix those pigments down in a dust scenario. So you get a nice, that's the first layer. And I went a little asymmetrical too, just to get a little varietal. You know, you can see I try not to cover like in one constant look. You try to get a little bit of you know, patchwork into this. This creates kind of that natural dust look to it. So that's layer 2. Same thing. You can see how the fixture starts to make it disappear a little bit. This is what you'll see like on an olive drab, like a Lee or a Sherman. You'll see this look, or even a Panzer, early Panzer gray. If you're doing this technique, you'll see how it kind of makes it disappear. But you can see how much more yellow it looks on the green, the NATO black road wheel right away. How it just kills that color. So that's what's going to happen when you have with the light color pigments in particular. Now let's try an experiment here. So I've got the other one. It's actually supposed to go in the front, this guy. Let's take this pigment away. So this is my original light. It's a bit darker. And let's see what they look like side by side so I can kind of demonstrate to you guys. This is a much kind of more earth tone base look. You can see how it's a little bit more on the pink. You can see immediately how it already is a different shade. And see how little I put down? I don't flood that too much in terms of like what I want for like a dusty road wheel. Same thing going, just a little spritz of love. Just spit that dust down in there. So this tells me right here that for the dark road wheels, which are there's a couple, there's like 4 on this one, 4 or 5. I could probably get away with a little bit of a darker tone, whereas this is probably a little bit more on the yellowy side for what I was looking for. Now it works fine against the pink base color, so that's where you get the shift of tones because everything's translucent. Weathering is all about translucency. Everything's thin layers applied on. You can see the different colors here. This is more of a dirt color. That's a lot more of a light, dusty yellow beach sand color. So it depends on kind of what you want, if you will. There's also that part of it too, or what you're going for. And you can spray more fixer down if you want to kill some of it too, by the way. It'll see how it starts to bring back the base color a little bit. And then movement up, that's the wet one. Am I missing questions? Alex Bissett, how's it going? How are you doing? Joining you from my bench today. Evening all. Hello, Forrest. Bobby G, Tank R1. Just got reprinted again for the 4th time. Don't worry, Darren, we're human and it's thinner after all. What did I miss? What is the book? The book. All the books. Okay. So moving to the fender, same idea. Now, if you recall the end of the other previous episode, that's actually oil paint down in there where we did a little weathering, but let's throw a little of the pigments up in there. Because what the pigments do more than any other product out there, and this is why they should get a little bit of the love. As you can see, that right there gives you a nice collected dust up in the corner there. Just spritz that down on there. Dust magic, my friends. That is. You probably don't have to do more than that for a vehicle of this nature. I've even got a little room left to hand paint that fire extinguisher and that. So this hockey stick, they actually nicknamed it a hockey stick in the Army, the British Army, is a specialty tool to tension the suspension on the Cromwell. So there's your breaker bar over here for the tracks, the long one up here, and then this was a special tensioner bar, for this type of suspension. I don't know where it went though. I don't know where it was inserted into. I don't know if it was jammed in there, how they did that. I don't know what the process, they don't explain the process of it, but that's what that device is, this long hockey stick up top. as a tensioner for the, and that also plays into, if you see the Cromwell with that on it, it has that specific tensioner. Because this model, so another thing I learned about the Cromwell, if you see this little guy right here, because you add this on the model, that bolt detail there's another one that's supposed to go over here. Again, I didn't, in that gap there, that is not me. I didn't build the model. Don't judge. You should either have both of them on there or none of them on there, and that determines the type of tensioner system was used. So it tells you in the instructions, which are one of the Tamiyas, the Japanese always have great instructions. It'll tell you if you use these, you don't use that. If you use this, you don't. It tells you what's what, by the way, when you go back and read it. But anyway, that little bit right there, there's your little dust corner, love. Just like that. So you can see why the colorway, it starts to show up where getting the wear and tear in a little bit brings out some contrast so that you can come in and add in the dust color. But you've got to be conscious of the base colors that you're working on, so that when you go to your dust tones, there's enough lightness in there to pull up as and look as an actual dust. Because that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to fake the eye to think that that model's dusty. Okay, so that was, I feel like I don't need any, I shouldn't be doing much more than that, because that come out pretty nice there. You don't want to push your luck, my friends. If there's anything about desert weathering, it's efficient. It is definitely. So you can see here, whoops, focus. Because that's all blurry, there you go. A little stipple action in there. Get that around and kind of the joints in the corners. The turret's going to cover quite a bit of that, but you can, if you wanted to, it just depends. You can build up the dust, and what I try to do is really build up the dust in areas where the crew's not going to be really, stepping all over it. It's either going to be covered by something else, or it's just not a spot that, like this area back here, that part of the back edge of this fender here will go to the oils, because the crew's going to work on that part of the tank a lot. So you're going to get the dust. So it's all common sense. None of this is like, super hard to figure out, but then same idea. Get a little bit of love. And those little specks and stains like that, when you put this under a camera, when you get this model going and you start to weather that detail out even further, and it's a little bit of a hot spot with this lens, but you can see that's what I talk about, where you kind of don't see the dust but when you rotate that down, that's what you're looking for with dust in the desert. You're looking for that nice kind of, so you've got to put enough color to get enough contrast. What you got, Steve? What's going on? Would you then pin wash? Yep. We're going to do that next with my oils. Yeah. It's coming up pretty nice. Drew, what's up, buddy? Just got home from work. I'm always running late. You're fine, Drew. You're totally cool. In fact, I do believe, I haven't done this, I don't do it in YouTube very often, but I think you can live scrub these. Meaning you can scroll that marker bar back and go back and watch stuff real quick. Happy accidents, Dan. Those are the best. But that's the key to, in the context of the dust of the desert colorways, is understanding that when you get to this stage, which is an important part, because it's, a lot of it is you've got to choose the colors that are really going to start bringing out what you're trying to convey. I don't normally, you have to kind of, this is that decision making part. A lot of you guys bring up a little bit, and this is, a lot of these are answered by the references. You really want to get in there and study the reference ideas about, okay, well, how dusty did this particular tank get? If it shifts, and we start getting specifics, if you shift terrains like into Tunisia and then you move up into Sicily, and if you do a campaign shift per se, even out of Russia and even out of certain parts of Europe, when you start really paying consciousness to the type of terrain that it's in and what's going on, affects how you actually play this up. So I'm showing you probably more realistically like a Tobruk, El Alamein, regions of the desert campaign that were notably dusty. When you get into the Tunisia part, into the Kasserine Pass and stuff like that, it gets a lot more rocky, a lot more shrubbery, a lot moisture, but wetter climates because you're getting pushing towards the Med. And so you'll get transitions of all these kinds of things that are important to pay attention to in terms of if you're going to do this. So the desert stuff in particular, and I would pay this into Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan's going to have a multiple terrains. So it just depends on your scenario, and you have to really study that. And that's going to be, those are your decisions to make. You have to kind of go in and start studying those things. Yeah, I'm really happy with that in terms of like the colorway, how that shows up. Like when you rotate that down low, it looks like a dusty tank now. So that's coming along good. Did my job, boys. It's always a little nervous with the light dust colors because especially if I was concerned it was going to be too beachy yellow. Your dust colors from the manufacturers, these guys, see how yellow that is? You can be real careful with that. So like I say, I put in, you're looking at a mix of these dudes here on top of my older mix. And I'll put the names in the description for you guys too this time so you can get those. I know the pigments are a little bit of a mystery, but there's only a few colors available anyway. But that's kind of the key context here is this guy gives you this in the dust scenario. But when you start shifting your base colors, you can quickly see. So I have enough pigments. I've got different range of tones available, but you can see what that does on the, and again, that could be, if you're thinking outside of a desert weathering for a second, and if you're just looking at a green tank wheel, which is 90% of all the tanks today, your colorways. So again, I always like to start light to dark anyway. But in the desert dust scenario, you can see how quickly that dark NATO black color just disappears. Okay, so there's that. Any pigment questions? I don't have that book, Steve. It's one of those that's on the list to get. Was not watching, I rewinded. Oh, question, Mike, sorry, I asked the question. What was your question, Vivian? Did I answer your question? Did I even answer it? Pigments get everywhere. My little finger bath over here. Yeah, they will get everywhere. I have a kitchen towel on my lap to protect my clothes. You do want to, but you can see here when you. That's a nice colorway going on right there, where I've got the rust tones with the dust, and see how it really complements it quite nicely. So I'm pretty happy with that colorway. I have to fix all my track pins are coming out because I've been playing with them like a 12-year-old. All right, don't play with your tracks, guys. They start falling apart, even the metal ones. Okay, we got that done. Road wheels there done. Yep, oils. Okay, let's move along. Get my yucky brush out. Yeah, the Panzer IV Desert Africa Corps is TANKART 1. By the way, I think somebody asked that question. Did I miss any other questions? Let me take a second here and roll through. Let me scroll up for a second. Yeah, I'm back to Nog's statement. Okay, yeah, I'm caught up. Okay, cool. Yeah, you guys are pretty chill today. It's because Zal bounced to work. Don't tell him I said that. Yeah, I still have, I'd say my Tamiya paints are probably a mix of 3 decades. 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I haven't bought a new Tamiya paint in a while. They're still very viable because with the acrylic lacquers, you can use a variety of thinners, so they're still they're good dry brushing paints too, by the way. I don't probably talk about that enough. I just have so much of the mission paints that I just, I need to chew through some of that. Same, any water-based paint, you don't want to have those hanging around for 10 years because they will probably. Zal, you see, you're still there, Zal. Santa Steve will send you them. Polish chips. Yeah, I haven't asked for. What new book? Yeah, the Ver Ed book was my latest. Yeah, I'm just busting your chops, Sal, because you're a boy. Sal's our Singapore dude. Oh, I think I saw Omnipla from South Korea. What else we got? I think what I'm going to do, sidebar. So Wednesday streams, the one thing I will do is I will shift the time I do these at. I have some guys in Russia in particular. I feel like I should give them a stream time that they're at least awake for. So you will see a little bit of the shifting of the time. So it won't always be at this time slot. Just a heads up on that part. Get this guy over here. Yeah, I'm super happy with that decal, how that came out. Because actually what happened was too, so you always cut your decals over the panel lines, by the way. This goes for everybody. So all the decals are cut. It actually looks like it's not, but it's cut on that other one too. And they hunkered down super tight around the handles and everything. That turned out nice. Again, if I was doing, it's kind of half a dozen of one, six of another for me on handles on tanks. To me, is if there's a complaint, if it's hard to, if we have to, because we love complaining, right? No, if there's a comment on Tamiya kits, armor kits in particular, is almost always the handles are solid. All these little tiny handles here, these are all solid handles. If you're into that, slice those bad boys off and replace them. You know, a little piece of plastic strip or brass. I think what I got to do is I got to bend the U-shaped brass and stick those on there. That's a super easy deal here. This is probably not the right size, but just a quick making a handle. Just take a pair of tweezers. I manhandled that one, but yeah. That's making a hand. There you go, making a hand. Tweezers are great for that. Tweezers, or my favorite one is I have a pair of ancient flat nose pliers that makes a really nice 90-degree bend on handles. I used to have the grab handler, which actually was a genius tool, mission model. That's when I worked with the hobby shop, because that's a hardened steel tool. It's worth the money. Like, I don't think they're around. I don't think you can find those anymore, the actual tool itself. But the grab handler was a hardened steel tool. That was why it was $60, because it was hardened steel. That's expensive stuff. Okay, enough bullshit. Everybody caught up? Everybody good? Yeah. What else? Okay. I meant to do this. Got sidetracked. Got 8 million stacks of paper towels here. You can never have too many paper towels, my dudes. I'll toss that one. Okay. KINGART. If you have not heard, RSP is now an affiliate of KINGART. So their link in the description down below. When you purchase through that, RSP gets a little love, and it is going pretty well. I don't see the number 2s in stock yet. I did check this morning, but I was told about a week ago it would take about 2 weeks. So I think maybe by the end of this coming week or into next week, you'll see the number 2s appear back again. But they are having a Black Friday sale, and I think some of the paintbrush sets just to grab brushes are like stupid price. I think a $130 set is going for like $25 on some of those. So click the link, hop into KINGART, buy all this stuff up, because it's just going to help the whole conversation in terms of growing this product way and everything for partnership into the future for brushes and oil paints and watercolor pencils and stuff like that. So right now it's just a commission link, affiliate link. RP Tools, yeah, if it's that much money, then it's probably also hardened steel as well. I think the grab handler in the day, and it probably would cost $120 today, but in the day it was about $65, $70 tool, and it's a hardened tool steel, so that means it'll bend any of the metals, even guitar strings, which I think are steel, right? Am I correct in that? I know you use guitars, Steve, but the brass rods and stuff like that, they won't. But I typically will use my tweezers, because you can quickly tape off a line on the width that you like. In other words, if I need that width there, I'll just take my tweezers and I'll come and I'll mark that up, and then I'll just bend a wire over that, just like you saw. Boom, done. Only need 2. Just being lazy. Okay. Oil paints, OPR. So we've got wheels on. We got some stuff on that. Let me take this dude off so I can access the hole. So we can do we'll do some love up in there. We'll do some love over here, and then some up on there. So yeah, we got enough to do. We're still going. Yeah, we'll do. Probably won't be the longest of streams, but we'll have fun. Well, I can take my time now. I think all the hard part's done. Showed you little tracks, little pigments. Now we can just get into this part. But desert weathering, the key to desert weathering to be successful with it all is to really make sure you have enough color contrast so you can see the stuff. Now, in the case of the Panzer IV, like I said in TankArt 1, that was specifically one of the reasons I chose the original invasion tanks, was because they were gray off the boat and they were painted in situ, as they say. So you get a lot of wear and tear on that, and that's all over the you get a lot of interest out of that. As you get later in the Africa campaign, Rommel will ship tanks that were fully camouflaged off the factory, but this early time here, you get a lot of this. So that's actually all Panzer gray, and then it gives you a lot of opportunity for other things to do. And this is the money one from the guy I use in the book. But you can see up here, you can see how what happens is the rubber tires. So to Vivian, to your question about that was, you can kind of see what the rubber tires will do to, right now, these are probably, I'm guessing these were used spare tracks. In other words, they use them, replaced them, and you're getting kind of a discoloration between where the contact patches are. So it won't be a polished look per se all the time, because especially for desert. And again, you know, this is what I'm talking about, the low angle on the photography, Vivian, on terms of like, do you see what's going on? Like you can just see. So this is where you see, that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of a darker, brushed off, cleaned up, a slight polish to it probably. You know, it's not a high gloss metal polish that you're seeing up under there, but that's what you're catching, a little bright work on the teeth. And this, is that a Brit? That's a Brit. So this Tommy here this is a destroyed tank. So this has probably been sitting around for a while, but that's probably a fairly shiny. This is probably a fairly recent destruction process. In other words, this was probably destroyed and they're on it pretty quickly. This hadn't been sitting around for super long, because those are going to rust up pretty fast. But you can see them in there, the bright work. So this is what I'm talking about when you're studying your references. Spare tracks up here, you're not really seeing it. You're seeing a little discoloration right up in there. And these are key. These are the, like when you're going to want to find stuff. Also on treads for tires, when they're in the dust and the dirt, you're not going to get the black treads, by the way. So you have to, it's not the prettiest of a look, but if you're being serious with your tanks, with your trucks, I mean, in your rubber tired vehicles, scout cars, be conscious of that look. Because it's going to be, especially in campaigns like this where there's not a lot of paved roads. But hopefully that kind of answers some of those questions for you guys. Just trying to see if there's any other really good money shots in these, but these books are gold. I'm just looking real quick. Just cool. I'm sitting there and read a book. I'm kidding. I'm joking. But yeah, that's gonna be kind of the heart of it all, really. You got to play that both up. So that also tells you, you know, to the question of, you know, when is enough is enough. When is enough? Okay. Tape. So I've got a little step palette here so I can grab this without putting my hand in the oil. Okay, so we'll stick this dude down. That's close enough. I've got my other paper towel. I like this. I just like the white for the blending, for the offload. Personal preference, doesn't matter, as long as it's a paper towel. And then I've got a little piece of tape for the thinner. Let me zoom out just a little bit, you can see this. So this is another part that I really like, that I'll bring up occasionally. I just love the simplicity of the setup. Once the pigments in this stuff are, now you have a choice too, by the way. You can go either way in terms of when you apply the oils versus the pigments. Because of the way I do OPR now, I'd probably get the pigments down first and then start working some of these sections, because I'm just, again, classic. Because this camera's like right at my mug. Trying to get this top piece of tape off. There we go. I hate this tape. I almost bought a new roll double side tape, but nope, I got 3 rolls of this. I got to use it, because if I buy the other piece of tape, then I'm not going to use up all this shit tape. It works fine. It's just, I just don't like it. It does the job. Okay. All right. Enough fucking around. Okay, so that's set up. This guy over here, odorless center right there. Put that down. Okay, so these are locked down in place. They're taped down so you can actually get the Jimmy Jams in there. Probably don't need that dude. So I just need a couple color brushes and then a nice soft blender. We don't need to do a lot. The beauty of desert, again, it's very efficient. You don't need to go super cray and all this stuff here. Let's kind of, we'll work up on that fender first here. Okay. So first thing I like to do is get a little thinner on the brushes, kind of prep those bristles. Somebody said in another, I don't know what I was watching, that brush is not happy. That this part is, it was just a painting conversation in general. This is a little bit like the shampoo in your hair. It kind of just preps the pre-games the bristles a little bit. So you don't ever want to really jump in with a full-blown dry brush too much with this particular process. Although you pull most of the thinner out. So you've kind of lubed the bristles up, if you will. And then since this is a setup, a new palette, that should be, probably don't need to, I don't think there's any dry skins over the top of that. So I selected, the dust one will be this dude. So color's gold. And I gotta use some of the older red ones here for a blender. And then I've got a soft, worn, angled as my little stipple blender. Any questions before I put my head down? Yeah, it's the Jimmy Jam tool. That's what it is. I'm working with them though, so we're hoping to do some stuff later, probably next year with KINGART. But this is the program for now. Which tank? M1A2 Abrams Tusk. That's a mouthful. I've joined late. You have joined late, my friend. You've joined a few episodes late. This is Tamiya's 35th scale British Cromwell that we're using as a what if desert campaign tank. That make sense? Kind of a what if scenario if the Desert War, North Africa continued on and they had used the Cromwell versus the Crusader. And it was a chance for me to kind of use the LRDG pink, because I probably won't be doing the Range Rover Scout Car thing anytime in the near future. Okay, so now I'm just kind of getting the paint going, the oil paints here, getting some dust colors going. And I'm just getting a little bit juicy. So to the conversation about colors again, where's my pigment, dude? So I've got my pigment thing, harmonizing the colors. So in other words, I'm going to be working with oil colors that are kind of, similar tones to the pigments. I'm not going, you tend to want to do that. That way, this is a dust range. I'm not applying multiple dust, colors that are completely out of whack. There's enough variety visually between the oils and the pigments. You'll get enough of that through the natural progression of additions and all that kind of stuff. But that's nice. I'm loading on the paper towel. And what I need to do next before I forget, because it's always the first thing I forget, just do a little pre-wet. So I've got the pigments over there. We'll get to that in a sec. So the reason I probably didn't need to on this, but sometimes it's a little bit like conditioning the paint as well. So just that painted surface, get a little thinner down. It just helps with, especially with a light tone like this, just really helps to kind of keep it from staining and affecting the paint. There's about a 15 to 20 minute window where these things start to kind of really get in their sweet spot. But it's that first 5 minutes where they just kind of sometimes can catch you off guard. So I like to put a little thinner down, just kind of to hit that. And you can see how quick and easy that is. Just a little dust application right in there, boom, done. Just kind of building up the opacity around the brackets and stuff. A little stipple action, tap that out. Now there's enough on here plus whatever thinner was in there, and you can see how that creates right in here, right up against that bracket, that fender bracket, that nice collection of dust that's right up in there. So I don't need too much more than that. I'm not looking for a ton more than that. And again, I'm doing a little bit more common sense. We're underneath. So this area here is obviously gonna be a little bit cleaner. And if it's not blending, like it started to just too dry now, get that little stipple brush, a little love. Here, I'll move it kind of down, pull, kind of quick little jabby stipple, kind of drag that color out a little bit. Kind of see how that looks right there. Boom, done. Nice. So this though right here, that's a split in the fender. There's a reverse bracket on the real tank to support that from the other side, that those bolts go down to. So that line there can be dark because that's going to be a gap in the metal. So let's grab another color. We'll just take our burnt umber, just your standard little brown. I'm done. I'm out. I couldn't do that again if I tried. That's a pretty nice tight. And this is, okay, why are we doing this? Why is KINGART so important? Why are these brushes so critical? Because that, my friends, was the money. That was just on point right there. I'm in a good, like my neck's not hurting. I was able to lay that down pretty nice. But see that point there? You can see here, that's a real nice load up. There's enough color to work with. That point is super crisp and sharp. And actually this is probably a freshie, but that's what they're all about right there, because it can do that. Now that's laying up. So what we've got to, I think, I forget the name of the person that asked earlier. So in terms of like a quote unquote a panel wash, the answer is kind of not really. I put down kind of a dust, like an opaque dust wash. It's not really a wash, because when you guys start applying the term washed, like a pin wash and a dust wash, like you're implying a flooding of the surface with a liquid, whereas what you're seeing, it is like a short liner, but let me pull the liner up. You'll see the difference immediately. Where is a liner? Where's my liner? That's a big liner. Here we go. So this is a 10-0 liner. The difference in a liner and a max round or a round is the belly. And I don't like liners at all. 2 reasons. One, they don't hold shit. There's nothing on that bristle to hold. Now liners are very specific. They're very specialized. And for specialized for weathering, my answer is no. Liners are great for what their intended purposes are. It's not what we do. And the secondary to that is the spring of the liner. Well, that's way too flexible for what I like. I like the resistance I get off the fatter belly. You can feel it when you do stuff with this guy. It just bends over when it's loaded. I usually almost never use liners, but they're very specific and they're for an intended purpose. Oh, my AirPods are down to 20%. All right, I'm gonna have to go a cappella here in a sec. Okay, so panel line, boom, done. Panel wash, to my original question or commentary there when I kicked myself out of that room, was, move you over just a little bit. What I'm doing with the oils here, I'll back up a little bit, try to explain a little bit slower. Sometimes I just do shit. You guys have to catch me. So this here with the dust, with all these colors in here, technically that is what was termed a panel wash, but it's also not, because one of the reasons is the thinner's on the brush, and I'm not pre-mixing into a liquid bath, in other words, and then dipping the brush in that and then dipping that on the model. What you see is you see me pulling the paint into the brush with the thinner. Now I'm in a controlled scenario. Sorry for the zoom. It's not really picking up. I'll push it over here. So what I've got is everything about the pre-made stuff, whether that's in the bottle and you buy it or you make it yourself in terms of a wash, I'm doing on the brush. It's all right here. My wash is all right up in here. And then what I'm doing is I'm coming in here. Actually, it's almost dried up. I'm getting a little bit more thinner. So I've thinned the wash down a little bit more. So that's more of a liquid wash. See how that looks wetter like that? Let me load up a little more. Now I'm changing the ratio. I'm putting more paint on that bristle. No more thinner. And then over here, see how that's much more of just a painted look? What I'm showing you is how I can control this. And I control it on the fly as I do this. What I wanted was just a nice dust tint to that. So I think, whoops, thank God that was just thinner. Now come back and now the blending stage, which is important. It's a little shaky because I'm stabbing it pretty good. Make sure it's on the tape good. So you can see this was a wetter one, and as soon as I stippled it, it almost disappeared. And then this one over here was drier, less thinner, because I changed the ratio of paint to thinner. I went into the palette, got more paint. You guys saw that. So this creates a more opaque look. So that's how you quickly can adjust as you do everything. Now, if this was all pre-thinned in one bath, you can't control it that way. You're gonna get that same similar result because it's a preset chemical ratio of thinner to paint. With the oil palette, with the cardboard and the brushes, I'm altering that every single time. Now you can recreate it to be consistent. That just comes with a little bit of just kind of muscle memory and just, you know, you can be consistent. But I like the fact that I can get such a broad range of applications rapidly. And I don't have to have pre-mixed shit. I don't have to have it in the bowl. I don't have to do anything. Boom, done. Just when you're in the flow, when you're in the zone, just come in here. Get this guy, I can just build up the dust. So who asked me, Jason, Focus Creative, you were pulling up paint or whatever, and I didn't even hair dry this. So I'm guessing you probably had a little bit of a thinner issue where you probably put too much thinner down on the blending brush. I keep tapping that. Got a loaded thinner. Slapping thinner down on the fender over here because I keep bumping into it. It's because everything's out of my deal here. So again, just stippling on top. So that's actually the second layer of dust. And what I do is when I blend, what I'm doing is you saw me apply it to that whole section. And then with the stipple brush, with the blender, I'm just blending out the edge of it, like right in here. So I'm not blending into the full application of oils that I put down. And that's how you soften that transition out of there. Is I'm blending along the edge of that. And then I can come in, I can even streak it if I wanted to, if I want to give it some direction. You know, either way. And then if you wanted to build that up color, if you want to build the color up into the panel line, into this fender ribbing, which is just a support thing. Okay. If I make brushes, I'm gonna tell you right fucking now, guys. If I make my own brushes, they're gonna be flat spotted. Whoever came up with the round brush on a flat table, literally, that's like, can somebody flat spot? Just run it on a belt sander. I cannot stand all the tools that roll. Guys, cracking. You like to run all these nuts. I'm a little cray-cray. Okay. So if I want to build up a little extra in this fender ribbing here, get that opacity. So now I've got more paint, less thinner. And it's as simple as that. And now I'm just coming in here and see how there's no thinner bleed. If the thinner was bleeding out of that, you're going to start getting a muddy mess and you're going to start removing some of the other applications. So again, the tip of this guy, when I'm going more paint, see how dry that brush now looks? And that's because of the paper towel. I'm unloading it. I'm loading it with thinner and paint. I'm unloading it to adjust. And I keep doing this kind of dance with my hands in terms of getting this down so that when you come in here and you want to get a really opaque dust in that fender, just like that, you're basically putting down almost a pure paint. And it takes just a little kiss of a blender to just kind of soften that up a little bit. Just clean that up, sharpen that. So for when the judges see that, and you can come in here and see what just happened right there, dry brush off that ridge because that's where the boots and the knees and the hands are gonna, see I'm pulling up the raw color from below now because I'm just wiping that away. And this is how fast and rapid you could do all this too on the fly. Darken that up now. So this is an OPR flex for you right there. And that's a simple 2 or 3 colors. Get my little zoom here. So let me lower the camera just a little bit. It's a risk. So now I've just taken on top of that chipped area wall, and this is why I rubbed the paint the way I did to get this kind of reddish primer pulled out. Just do a little love step there. Simple, boom, just like a little bee stinger. And those little bristles just come in and soften that little application. That's it, boys. That's it, right there. Now, if I wanted to, take that, whoops, dude, that's the pigment cup. Don't do that. That's because I'm so blurry on the reader vision, I couldn't see that far away. Okay, clean that out. Get the raw umber. So that's burnt umber. It's a little bit of a dark red brown. So now raw umber is kind of your black, dark brown. Load that up. So just to show you. See how dry that looks? You don't see the sheen of the thinner or the gloss of that. You can even, it's just that's what that looks like. And that's because I've gone in here, taken that, and then roll that, pull it backwards, keeps that tip sharp. And that way when I see that right there, that kind of gritty, looks like I dry brushed a paper towel, good to go. Come back over to the fender. So in the center sections of some of these, a little bit darker, just a very gentle application. Switch to your blender, almost no thinner on there at all. Wipe that out pretty good. This is the red one. Sharp pointing number 2, beautiful. Come in here. So now you've layered a worn, rubbed, chipped down to the kind of steel colorway. So that's how delicate, see how delicate that bristle is, guys? I just come in here. Just manipulating that little bit of that chip worn edge a little bit, just kind of drawing some of that out. I'm kind of making little scrapes and scuffs. And we'll do that over here in the pig. I haven't forgotten yet. Don't hold on. I've got you. So that right there is how you affect kind of with the, this is why the, if the camera will focus on that spot there. That's why you go through the chipping process first. You get all the wear and tear in the paint first. And confirm, you guys hear me okay? Because I lost headphones, but I think you can. I'm pretty sure you can. But what you have right there is so, to reiterate, what you're seeing is over here. This is why I go through all that process, all that extra time to get the worn paint effects into the surface first, get your markings down, get everything set up, ready to go, get into the weathering, and then this is why I've done that, because now I've got the dark steel, the worn kind of rusted, unpainted metal with a little bit of the red primer showing through, with the desert pink showing through. That's it, boys, just like that. Just like that. That's all you need to do, and I can bring the same process up over to every section around here. On this colorway here, it's a simple color palette of just kind of the light dust tones here. Let me zoom back out a little bit. Oops. So I've got over here my palette. So I've got my dust colorway. You can see how I blended it up. I haven't really got into the pinky tones yet because I really need the pinks and the reds just yet. But then I've got my dark grease and grime colors here. These are almost always on the. In fact, they are literally on these 3 Winsor Newtons are always on the palette. And then I've got my other tone. And we'll light. We got some colors for the markings, the blues. So we can fade that too. We'll roll up. We'll keep going. Don't worry. We're gonna keep going. But I did want to take a minute just to reiterate the money shot. That's just a bit of love right there. That's probably worth this whole video right there, that stage of what just happened, where I put the dust down, I layered up more dust to get more, a little bit more opaque, and then like, see how when you rotate that this way, so your eyesight goes across that, how that looks like a dusty plane versus a little bit more of a cleaner version over here, and then the clean section with the, and you can see all the discolorations in the paint that just happened just from the natural scrubbing process in the chipping sections. And you would just carry that colorway down. Same idea, same concept. So hopefully that hits. So I'm gonna take a second here, just kind of sit up and stretch and catch my breath for a minute. Any questions on that part? Kramer would take it up. Relatable. Hey Corey, what's up, bud? Just see Relatable's name all over. When I look up, how you doing, Corey? Chris Storch, how do you feel about heavy mud on running gear and strategic dusting above? That's no problem for the scenario. It depends on what your scenario is. If you're going to do that, Chris Storch, I would say do the dusting first. You'll probably have a little more success. Get all the dust down first and then build up the mud on top where you need it. Pretty simple process, actually. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so M1, A2. Okay, got him answered. PK, I see the difference now. Thanks. Okay, you got that. Yep. What else, Corey? Well, it's a good thing I checked to see if we were live tonight. We are live tonight, my friends. If you are unfamiliar, on your YouTube screen, you should see a little bell icon. If you click that bell icon, you'll get the notices when we stream, by the way, if you guys haven't done that yet. So that's why you hear the YouTubers click the notification bell. That's what they're talking about, and you should see it. Kind of focus, dude. I don't know why it blurs out like that. That's not the phone. I think that's the webcam software. Just, I don't know. It interacts with the phone weird, because when I use the iPhone in the real world, it thinks money. And sometimes it works really good. I'm not complaining too much about it, because that's a stellar lens. Also, click 1080p. If you're unfamiliar with YouTube, there's a little gear. Click the gear. It brings up all your 420, 720, your image settings. Set that to 10, because we stream in 1080p. So if you've got the capability, you'll see a pretty crisp image. But yeah, flat spot the brushes. It is something I will bring up, by the way. If I get to it, I am honest. I try to be honest. I'm an honest guy. This is the other brand of brushes, Royal and Ling Nickel, which are nice. I got a couple of these because they're shorter, so they don't bump the camera. Because these are a little bit longer. Okay, so the reason why the KINGART brushes are so nice, both are number 2 rounds, and this is just poo. That's a terrible bristle head. Like, what are you doing, dude? And this one here isn't even. Dial that guy in. Let me just show you. So so the brand does matter. The brand of brush does matter. The type of bristle does matter. These are both number 2 rounds. This one is a really fat belly. You can really hold a lot for some other stuff. It is useful for some things. I'm not gonna argue or lie about it. But the flexibility of these number 2 rounds, the 90/20s that you guys basically are buying in droves. I have enough too. I have a couple dozen of them, so I go through them pretty quick. Okay, let's continue on. I think I'm all set. Probably no. I'll leave the headphones in just so it doesn't mess up the sound. What else? Did I miss any other questions? Corey's always cooking. What else? Asymmetrical, critical advice. Yeah, asymmetry is big. Panzer Dan says, never get my old chips to look right. It's going to be how much thinner is probably on your brush, Dan. I'll go through that one. I'll go through it a few more times. Lay your brushes on the soft face cloth and they won't roll. No, true. On the paper towels, they don't roll as much, but I don't have a soft face cloth on my filming setup. But yeah, if I was to make my own brushes, there's a reason these are all faceted. There's a reason children's pencils are faceted. There's a reason for it. I don't know why they don't do that for us adults, but oh well. Okay, what else we got? Did I miss anything? Everybody good? Piss and rain again. What is it? 5? Yeah, it's rush hour outside. So this effect here, I'll walk through it one more time, and we'll keep going over here, and then we'll get into a little bit of the pigments. What I'd like to do, what I haven't done yet, and y'all know what's coming. Where's my little Jimmy Jam? Okay, let's throw some speckle love down. Like to get that in there. Like to get the speckling in early. What we'll do is 2 layers speckling. So we've got your 2 color brushes. I've got my dark colorway and I've got my light dust colorway. Where I put them, this guy. Put this guy in. Okay, so let's do some dust speckles first. A little bit more thinner on the brush. Load it back up with some paint. So you can see it's a much wetter looking. See, that's the difference. See how wet that one is in here. This one's still set up, so you can we can compare. So this is helpful for you guys when you're loading this, and this is good just to practice this too. See how on the right the dust one is way wetter. It's actually leaking on the finger there. See how wet that is? It did nice wash in the thingy, and this guy's basically a dry brush. You could do so much with the dry brushing, by the way, and this is probably what it is, Dan. Because really what I'm doing is I'm skipping across the matte painted surface. There's little particles of kind of particulates in the paint that are there, and it's a dry brush scrub, and you saw that on the finger there. And the difference is this over here won't leave a chip, whereas the guy on the left, the brush on the left, will leave a nice chip because it's almost a dry brush scenario. The brush on the right is going to be for a wetter application type stuff. So, but I need to flick some of this down in kind of a speckle. Just a little more thinner. So this just, okay, is everything good? So this is just adding another little layer of discolorations and grittiness. And actually, this is where I wanted to do is get over into the pigments and start flecking some of this down. Rotate this head here is kind of your aim. So here is kind of aim it in. Now and I've even got a little bit up in here, which is totally cool too. Because you'll get a collection of moisture stains on desert vehicles just from the crew. You know, coffee, water, fuel, oil, all sorts of stuff, the food, you know, whatever. So that just adds a little bit. See how that adds just a really nice, it starts to tell a story now that we're adding depth to this now, to where it's just not like just a pure dust layer. And this gives you a little bit more visual interest. It's a quick way to get that down in there. And then what you can do is come in, switch over to the darker tone. Oh, I meant to show you the rust speckling technique again too. Okay, thanks for reminding me. So load up the darker brown one now too. Okay, I want these kind of really fine speckles. Not too much. Just real gentle. I go a little, just a hair wetter. Going a little bit higher up, starting to get a little bit of the engine deck speckling down in. And this could be just a random collection of anything you can think of. Right into the dust. And you can see how with the pigments, it will kind of, there's an instant tide mark there, but that's okay because that's kind of what really happens with when you get water spots or stains in the dust. You'll get a quick tide mark anyway, so I'm okay with that. You can actually go up a little bit higher here too. But you can see I went over, you can see where I've gone over the engine and started to get a couple of those. Now what I can do with the same brush, come in here on a few of these. Just hit one, and actually I actually will allow the tide mark to happen because that's what's going to happen if that happens in the real dust layer on the tank. You'll get those little tide marks. So I've unloaded the brush a little bit. Oops. So that's where you get a little bit too much of the unload that a little bit more pure color. If I'm going to get a little bit of a bleed out like that, then I'm going to go ahead and do a little discoloration through there too. Now you probably don't want to have a lot of dark panel line washes on a desert vehicle, so do be cautious with that, by the way, because this is be a little bit specific. I'm just softening, I'm taking a little bit of a blender brush and softening that bleed out, because you're going to get a little bit of a discoloration through that too. You can keep the hard tide marks if you want them. It is applicable and does happen. Because remember, this has the pigment dust up in it. So I'm showing you how to apply the stains and stuff into that. But you can see how this blender brush is almost dry. So just got a little bit more thinner on that, just so I can soften that discoloration right there between those a little bit more. Yeah, you probably don't need to do too much more than that, to be honest with you. Come in here. You can tap a little bit more to get kind of a more of a stains and kind of clear stains in that dust layer too. Excuse me. And then of course this guy, I haven't even used this guy. Let's try that up. Try that up. So So you can see that's how that's starting to get in the dust layer a little bit, get that weathering and a little bit of a scrape, scuffs. And I'm focusing on that area of the catch-all of kind of where the crew's going to come in. That turret's going to sit up right up in here. So this section right up in here, especially these stowage bins up here, we're going to get into that. I'll move it along over here too. But that shows you kind of just, you know, when you're coming in here. Now, remember with OPR, remember how when I teach this, I'm tempted right now just to go through the panels a little bit with you guys, but I'm trying not to get caught up in the fact I just want to show you the dark panel lines and stuff like that. But what I do is, I actually, because I've started right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going along here in my normal progression. Now, because I put pigments elsewhere, and I did want to demo that for a couple of you guys that you were asking about that, but we'll get into this section here. Typically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this section here. I'm going to just work it along. I'm not going to worry about this. Come along, and just work the whole, and that's how I normally would progress with that stuff. Oh man, I got some nice stuff going. That's looking really nice. This model's actually coming. I won't complain. This model's coming along, It's a little wet, so dry that up. I want a little bit more. So get a little bit more paint. I want a little bit more of a dry brush. So I'm just coming right in there. So Dan, and those of you that are you know, with your paint chips and stuff in this regard, where it's kind of a more worn, fresh metal edge to it. I could probably do a lot of that. Side bristle stipple. The side bristle stipple. There's a new one for you. Just a little jiggle, just a little jiggle. I don't want too much of the dark brush tone into that pitted area or that low. I want just on the high spots. And I don't want to overwhelm this model with the darker tones, so I'm being real careful and cautious and working real slow. Come in here and just kind of, it's just a little coffee shake jiggle to kind of soften those applications. And I'm just going around the ribbing on that fender, just that exposed part. But in the roadmap conversation, all that chipping, scrubbing, wear and tear I already know where this is going. Like, I'm actually not even really thinking about it. I'm just kind of following along. It's a color by number situation almost, where all this wear and tear in here, all this reddish, pinkish primer color pulling through, this is all just, it's telling me where I need to do this. Like, I don't have to worry too much where it's a little bit more of a real red. Then I know I'm gonna need a little bit stronger thing. We're gonna get a little feedback here. Turn it off. Yeah, keep point on the sound. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. I think my AirPods are dead. Let me put this away real quick. I don't know why that didn't hold. Usually those are good for 3.5, almost 4 hours. Okay. But is that coming through okay on the actual weathering part? T-handles are inconceivable, but love all the new kits. What are we talking? Do you lay your brushes on the soft face gloss and they won't roll? Yeah, okay, got that. When your AirPods die, we lose. Oh, okay, yeah, I got you on that one. Yeah, so there is no music. We're acapella. Just me, but as long as you guys can hear me. Okay, sweet. Thanks, Darren. That's what I thought. It happened last time. I think my batteries and my AirPods aren't hanging in there, but I did use them earlier today for a minute too. I do notice that. If I'm on a phone call during the day I streamed and the AirPods don't hang in later. We can bring this up a little closer though. Let you guys see that. And if it's not transferring the paint, then use a stipple action in the side of the bristles. See how I'll turn this a little bit here. So just kiss that like that. And that just kind of taps that paint onto and you can always come back and blend that in if you need to soften that up. Oops. That's why you shouldn't hold things. So I'm just catching, this is really kind of just a dry brush chipping process. So what I can do is, let me set this up a little bit. I think I can get this to set up properly. It doesn't want to. I can get that to set so you guys can see. Okay, cool. Yeah, you guys can see that pretty good. Okay. We'll do the fender edge first, and then question: how is the wooden handle attached to the model? How is it with the tool bracket? It's strapped in there. It's either a metal latch or a leather strap. That's actually metal. I haven't painted that metal yet, but yeah, these guys over here. You'll see them on the model, Vivian. You see these little brackets here? The plastic kits are minus the actual, like a U-shaped handle. There's supposed to be little handles on this right here, on these guys, like a little U-shaped handle. But these, that's what those are. There's little tool brackets, and those are welded to the fender, so it kind of latches on and off. You open the latch, you pull the tool out. U.S. ones used a lot of, the Shermans in particular, Lees, M3 Lees, Sherman Stewarts, used a lot of leather straps, like a buckle, looks like a belt buckle, where the holes and all that tie it down. Okay. So as you can see too, I'm not using a lot of orange rust and tones of that nature. I'm just kind of sticking with kind of a brown raw steel. You don't get a lot of in the desert, and I lived in Vegas for a while too. You don't see a lot of the orange rust. You see a lot of brown rust, a lot of surface rust, a lot of oxidation. You don't get a lot because you don't have a high moisture content. In arid climates, you get a lot of dark brown rust, a lot of steel gray, brown rust colors. So I'm not using a lot of the oranges and yellows for this stage. In case you were wondering. If you were wondering at all. I should probably get some color on that though. Okay, so what happens? That's a little... Dry it back up. If the paint doesn't transfer, it's too wet. There's too much thinner on the surface, and I was there it goes. So it gives it a dry surface again. Get some color, get some paint on the brush. These Winsor Newtons are getting old. They don't transfer into the brush as fast anymore. I can tell. So just redo the brush. I'm getting a little thinner, a little paint back on that guy. Putting it back in the paint, nice. Dabbing that on the paper towel. There it goes. There you go. That's what you want to see. You want to see the paint transfer over. So I'm just hitting the high spots of these sharp edges here. All I'm doing right now. Oops. Jamming that in the camera too. And I'm not worried about the rest of the model too, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue on with this process around other sections. Come in here and do a little stipple. And this just softens the brush strokes up a little bit. As you can see, stippling is one of those things I do quite a bit. I don't really rub and brush too much. Okay, let's do this too. Get that set up there. I can get a little bit more serious over here. See how laying that down, that bristle down sideways? See the kind of marks it gives you? Those are super nice. Switching to the blender brush. Just kind of cleaning that up a little bit. Pull a few of those down as streaks. Doesn't need much. This is keeping it all in scale. The edge of this rear edge of this fender that's been cut off or probably torn off or whatever. I do like my tanks fenderless. That's just often the British tanks, they have a ton of fenders. I understand that part of it. This is just personal preference. I like a lot of fenderless tanks. So even the Cromwell in the actual Cromwell in Europe, oftentimes would have there's a little end fender here and an end fender here. But there's also plenty of photos that show them, ripped off or cut off. Same with Churchill's. Sherman's not so much. That was a really stronger type front fender. So I'm just letting kind of the natural, like you're not going to have a lot of dust on that flat exterior surface of that fender. So I apply it, I do a little quick little blend, just a little coffee shake, kind of a jiggle stipple, kind of an idea. Pull a couple down in streaks, not too many, but just enough to get a little love going on right there. And if you wanted to from the other way, just hit that from the other direction. And like I said, the rear of these fenders, because that the drive sprocket's right here, it's going to be throwing a lot of stuff up on this edge of this rear fender over here. Again, now I'm kind of just direct stippling. See how you get kind of that rusty, chippy look in there? Kind of a scuffed, scratchy chip look. So I'm not actually painting chips. Like when we have that conversation a little bit, and Dan, that might be also part of what it is a little bit, where you guys are trying to paint a chip. Whereas I'm kind of just letting the natural bristles and the dry brushing and kind of this process, and it's starting to evaporate and dry out now, so it's becoming even more workable. And these will actually lock into place here. A little hair dryer, and that'll ultimately dry dead matte really quick. And it'll hold up to some handling. You know, you can probably get away occasionally. That'll rub off though if you're not careful, because that's a sharp edge. That paint will rub off, but you can kind of see. Just getting some love, my friends. Do this all fucking day. It's so nice. Jim asks, perhaps an obvious one. You do your pin washes after all the weathering effects. Okay, so I'll back up. Come on and do this. The side bristle stipple with a P. Stipple. I'm slurring. Stipple. Question, Vivian. I mean your handle to handle on the you mean this wood base, Vivian? That's just double side tape. This is an IKEA couch leg. I forget where I got these from. It's an old couch. I kept them though. I kept those wood things, these little plinths. That's just double side tape down in there. If that's what you mean, I'm not sure that's what you meant. I think that's what you mean. I hope I answered that. But yeah, I think that's what it's double side tape. Yeah, thanks, Pete. Okay, so Jim, we'll get up to you. Let me answer the rest of these, and we'll go through this one more time, Jim, because I think if you bonsoir, Mike, how are you? Regards, sweet domain. My French is terrible, my friend. My French teacher in high school, Mrs. Dunbar, who was Scottish, who was our French teacher, so she spoke French with a Scottish accent. Her daughter was Minnie Mouse at Disneyland, by the way, just in case you wondered. Because that comes up in Trivia Pursuit all the time. But that goes back to the 80s, so I'm sure that's not still the same. What else we got? Hold on, we'll get to you. Hang in there, Jim. We'll get to you in a sec, buddy, because we're going to go through some stuff. Okay. Yeah, double side tape. Yep, okay. To buy the whole couch to get one. You had to buy the whole couch to get 7, by the way, 2 hands. Because there was 4 in the corner, and I think there was 1 in the middle, so that's 5, and then there was 2 more in the front to keep the front from bowing under. Yeah, the side bristle stipple. That's a mouthful. Okay, so what's happening here? I'm gonna back up a little bit because this plays into the question from I'm gonna forget your name, my friend. Doug's Bass Shop. I don't know if Doug's in there. Yeah, I don't know what that sounds like either, Mike. And I probably am going to hate myself for coming up with that one because you guys are going to forget it because nobody forgets this shit. Yeah, but I'm thinking on how to articulate this for you in a clear, concise way. It is one of the more challenging aspects. But while I'm thinking of that, using my hand as an example, using that kind of the taper belly of the brush against the edge of your details in that regard right there. That's how you paint and apply. Like, don't try to take the tip of that. Don't try to take the tip of this brush. See how it doesn't transfer the paint? Come in here and let it kiss it. And it's basically a dry brush process. And what you're seeing there and what you're getting, because it's a matte painted surface, to all those in the gloss satin finish world, what you're getting is there's tiny little imperfections in the paint from the chipping and the wear and tear, And then by kissing that bristle across that surface, it's picking up all those little imperfections in the dry brushing conversation. And that's how you're getting, and it's the same thing up over here on that edge. There's slight imperfections of the thickness of the paint. It's almost in the micron level, and it just picks up. So if I can pull this off, it just picks up. I don't have my eyeglasses on, but so you can see, that's what you're doing right in there. And you don't want a lot of, if you have any thinner on this brush to where it's wet, that'll just turn into mud. So this is why it's kind of a dry brush. And what you learn this by, or you get this by, when you're on the paper towel, when you see that right there versus this, that has too much thinner. So what you're looking for is unload it to where you start to get to that. And when you start to see that means that paintbrush is grabbing those, see how it's dry brushing the paper towel? That's what it'll do to the model. And the paper towel is an exaggerated example of what matte paint is, and that's what it's doing on the side. That's where you're getting all the little scruffy love right in there. That is all coming up because it's the matte paint. It's been chipped and worn away. You're getting tiny little level adjustments and variations on that surface, and that bristle is kissing all those and transferring the paint. That's where you're getting all that. So it's all part of one umbrella process. So to Jim's question about the pin washes. So, and I talked about this a little bit at the end of, I think 35, whenever we got to this point. So oil paint rendering, the idea of the palette is one section to that conversation where you're pulling this out. You're pulling the linseed oil out of the paint, so you've got a really workable paint now on the cardboard. It's also your mixing palette, so you can get all the specific tones that you need by the variety of colors you've got laid down. So that's the two-stage part of setting that up, why those colors match the model, and all that part of the conversation. And then from there, you're using your brushes and you're using the thinner as the tuner, like what I call the volume control. So and you've seen that all this afternoon, where I'm using and talking about how much thinner is on that brush to apply it in a certain process. If I want to do a pin wash, it's a little bit wetter because I want a little bit more flow out of that. But what you're seeing though, the final part of this, if you're new to this, Jim, and those of you who are asking, is that what I'm doing is I'm doing all the weathering processes in one section. So there's a pin wash, there's a dust layer in there, there's the rusty, chippy, edgy look on there. It's all being done step on step on step on step in one area, versus doing a pin wash around the whole model, and then coming back and doing a dust around the whole model, and then coming back and doing the stains and streaks and stuff around the whole model. I'm doing it all right here in a contained segment. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to see what the model is going to do in the weathering. And this is a development of the process over time and what it's taught me in terms of speaking back to me. In other words, I can see in this one fender section what the weathering of this model is going to be like now. I can see what the colors will do. I can see what the chipping will do. I can see everything that I need to see. And so now I'm calm. Now I'm focused. It's the Bruce Lee conversation, the be like water. It's all that bullshit of locking this in. And I can spend a couple hours doing that. If this is a shoulder of a Gundam, if this is a fender of a tank, or a wing of an airplane, I can now step away. Life happens, and I can come back, and I know what I've got for my palette because I've got it. It's an analog palette, and it's right here. And if it dries up on me, no big deal. I can make a new one because I have all the same colors. I have everything else, and I can look at this palette and okay, that's what I used. It's pretty simple because you only got like 24 colors to choose from. And that's kind of the mental bouncing around with what OPR does. And that has radically changed how I weather models now. Because like I said, what you normally do is you come in and you put pigments over the whole thing. Now, I probably would, because pigments are a little bit on the specific side, and then they're a powder product, is probably would have continued on. But I don't have to. I can come in and put the pigments over here. I can do it over here. I see what's going to happen now. I know what's going to happen with this. And then from that, I can then extrapolate out as I move around now. As I go to the stowage bins over here, I already know what I did over here, and that just kind of, I just relate to it. I just boom, okay, cool. And if this is too much or not enough, I can always come back and pump that up or knock it down a little bit. I can put more dust on this and knock it down or whatever I want to do. That's the flexibility of the oil paint rendering system. In other words, it's taking all the stuff we do, pin washes, filters, panel, whatever you want to call it, putting it into one area at one time all the way through to like 90-95% done. Because what will happen is you'll get to the point where you've gone through the whole thing. Now you can come back and tune it. So to Flip's question way back in the beginning, when you know it's done? Well, you're going to know it's done because I've seen this work here. And then when I move over here, I'm going to evaluate myself. And I guess I could show this. KINGART 4, as I was kind of teaching myself to write a better book, KINGART 4, in particular, this model here is this process here. And I want to do one last process before we wrap up today. What time are we at? 5? Okay, we got plenty of time. The Nashorn was one, and then the Gorilla was the other one. I think it's this guy. I can zoom out a little bit more. What this model taught me was this specific, what I just brought into, and this photo right here, this is actually a crop photo. I think it's cropped from one of these guys here. So all I did was I set up my palette, my oil paint palette here, and I started working on the model. I picked the front left fender here, right here at the jack block. It's all bent and chipped up and everything from the painting process. So you get all that done first. Then you come in here. Now I'm adding my little bit of dust. I'm adding a little bit of a pin wash on the fender brake. I'm weathering the wood on the jack block. I'm getting these guys dirty and grimy and putting stains. Everything that you saw right here, it's tuned to this model right here because it's a different scenario. It's a different shape. It's a different theater, and it's a different colorway. But the processes are all the same. The brushes are literally the same number 2 brushes I've been using for 20 years. That little blender dude, that guy, that's this brush right here. That's him right there. That little Jimmy Jam. So I've been doing the same stuff for a long, long time. And that's because it's very, very flexible. And to me, that's been the game changer. Just straight up, I can do a German World War II, late war 1945 urban combat. I can do a British what if, desert North Africa, full-blown pink colorway, totally different, same thing, boom, done. So that's kind of where I'm going with a lot of this stuff in terms of what you're asking, Jim, technically is kind of that concept of, so some of you, hopefully this, and I know a lot of you know this, have been around for a minute or two on the streams, you're hearing this repeated, but what you're getting now is that scenario of I'm pulling through, you've watched the painting, we've done a lot of the chipping, you saw some of the decals, I showed you some of the tracks, so I'm moving the project along, and so now we're at the weathering stage, and technically, I can just do this at my leisure now. I can sit down anytime I want to work on this Cromwell, and I can just take this little dude, and I can just keep going over here, and keep going. And I tell you what, guys, and this is no shit. It is fun as you can imagine weathering to be. It is low stress. I don't have this. First off, I don't have enamel smells, so no offense to my enamel producer friend guys out there, but this is odorless. It's literally the easiest, nicest, user-friendly process in terms of weathering that I've come across. So that's what you're kind of seeing, and I put all that stuff down. The beauty of oil paints is that's not dry yet, but I gotta touch that up. Arnell, you're welcome, my friend. Thank you, buddy. Your books are on the way too, buddy. He put a new order in too, by the way. And so, Jim, does that kind of start to connect the dots of what's kind of happening with what you're seeing versus the philosophy versus the application, the execution, the references, and the entirety of the game plan? So the enamel producers have left the chat room. Sal, you're funny. So let me just a little coffee jiggle shake. And see how I'm just using the side of the bristle. This is the blend. The red ones are the blenders. My old dudes. And if it dries up, and that's why it's taped down, because I bumped that, but that doesn't go anywhere. Unload it. So now I've reset the blender. And come back over here. I had thrown this oil down and I didn't blend it in, so I'm just kind of making sure. It'll eventually dry, so if you don't blend it. And see how right there I've got a hard edge line. So now I've got a little bit, even like let me zoom in a little bit more, you guys can see. See how and this is where we talk about filters in particular. Filters are super powerful. See how I've just got a slightly warmer patch right in here under this bracket over? Boom, done. Just, that's how quick that happens. Just a little bit of that dark color. I've got a little bit of kind of the worn pink look over there. So now I've got a really cool, interesting looking fender now. That's already starting to happen. Go right up to that part break line. And that's actually solid up in there, but we fooled the eye by putting that really dark panel line in there. So this is desert weathering in particular is pretty simple because it's such a simplified color scheme. You have a base camo, but your actual weathering stuff is pretty mellow. because it's such an arid climate. I'm just knocking some of these down, dude. So when I speckled earlier, and some of these, if I didn't like some of them, you can always come back in within a reasonable amount of time, say in the work session. And normally I wouldn't speckle the surrounding areas. I would have just speckled the fender and moved on. I was just trying to show some of the other work into that. All right, so I keep forgetting to do this, but let's get on this. Let me take this dude off here. Okay, one of my favorite little things to do that I did. Put this guy back over here. Oops. Got to readjust all the arms of everything. Okay. It's a little bit crammed in here, but I'll get it down for you. Okay, so we're going to speckle some rust stains into that. Let's see here. Get this up. Okay. So one little, I've shown this before in some other stuff, but this is a really good application for it. Okay. It's so weird without the music. It's so quiet in here right now. And I've got the windows sealed shut because it's so cold outside. I literally don't even hear the traffic. That's the blender. It's this guy. Okay, so we're going to load up a little speckle. We're going to go to the burnt sienna, which is the actual rust tone. Same thing with the speckling, but we're doing this for a special effect now versus just stains. It's a little wet. Okay. Just hyper small little flecks. You guys can, okay, good. You see that? Perfect. So we're laying down tiny little, in this type of scenario, because of the rocks that will get thrown up and chip and scratch, and as the treads rotate, you're going to get little nicks and dings in the paint. Probably go hard up in here too. So I'm using this as like little chip marks, if you will. Now the drive sprocket and stuff will cover some of this, so you're probably going to lose a little bit of it. But what I'm doing is can you see? It's just. So it's all a little bit of some of this stuff, but it's all that stuff up under there. It's right. It's doing this kind of look up under there, and that's trying to get all that little kind of chippy little look in there in kind of a really dried kind of a. So then once you get those down, once they're down, if I can get my head in there, I have to turn this just a wee bit. Move it over there a little bit. Okay. Hold on, I can't see the palette. It's so funny. Okay, I'm gonna get a couple of, I'm just getting a little bit of a darker tone now. So that's down, that's the hard part's done. Well, most of the hard part's done. Okay, there's pigments down, so you probably would want to do this before the pigment, so you will get a little bit of a tide mark bleed out. So I'm going to go as less thinner as I can. You guys getting, okay. I put more color down on a couple of these. I'm pulling from the lower edge of that mark. It's bleeding into the pigments a little bit. That's okay. We'll just use that to kind of affect. So I recommend this on the raw paint first and then put your dust pigments down. But pull from the bottom edge of these guys. And if it's not pulling down the color, then come in and add a little bit more. And see, I've got a little bit of like a line. It's a little bit dry. Come in here. Don't draw the line per se, but just gently kind of just take these dots and connect the dots with a little bit more of a stipple dot. So that gets kind of a scratch in there. So the red, remember the red one's the blender. So the tips look the same, so I don't want to confuse you, but I'm switching to the blender. And you just pull that, get down on the bottom edge of that color. It doesn't have to be a lot. And it looks like it's drying pretty nice actually, because I've got enough fixer down that even though it looks like it's getting wet. See, I just can see that little money. That's a real money streak right there. See how subtle that one is? And this one over here now looks almost too much. I can come back and I can calm this guy down a little bit. And when you get a scenario like this where you're starting to get kind of a moisture look through this, start pulling some of these through. And that'll start to give it a little bit of it looks like a moisture runoff a little bit too as well. But I can come in here on this opening now, do these little, I can even do a little bit more of a wetter application on some of these bolts. There's these little recesses on this side of the hole. You can come in here and do some of those. So that's, see how wet that is, a little bit wetter now. I'll get to your questions here. 2 seconds. Did that answer the question? Did that make sense, Jim? I'm looking up at your, I'm over here, but I was looking up, and did that make sense to you? So now I'm just, see how I just kind of work, I'm reverse working upwards, and I'm kind of working that lower edge, so you get a little bit of a rusty low edge there, because you can imagine that the rocky terrain is going to scrape and scuff that lower edge of the hole quite easily. But I'm not going psycho crazy. I'm just getting a little bit of kind of a rusty love. And you can see I got a little bit of kind of a rain streak in the dust. Have faith in the hairdryer. This is where it brings it all in. Locks it all into place. So now you can quickly add in just kind of the wear and tear into the side there, and that's how you apply those little rock chips in there. So what I would do is I keep doing that little blending process through the rest of those a little bit, get those kind of knocked down, because remember the back of this hole right up in here where that drive sprocket is, this can get pretty nasty up in here, like all this up in here. You know, you can probably hit a couple scratches. If you're not good at scratches, horizontals, take something linear as a bridge, rest the brush on that. See how I apply those little tiny scratches like that? Just, if you're really slick, you can get something like another piece of wood and set it up so where you can really set this up and just come in and carefully boom, one and done. Kind of scuff that up a little bit more. Get a little bit more paint going. I'm jamming the paper, messing everything up over here. Because that little back edge of this guy with the dry sprocket, you know that's going to just get nasty up in there. But build it up slowly. Don't rush into it. But you can see how I quickly is able to get some stuff going. And you can see how the burnt sienna colorway is a little bit more of a rust red, and this is more of this burnt umber color up here is a little bit more slightly different. So now I'm playing up my tones a little bit, working those in, but I can compare, because I have the fender down a little bit, I can compare the whole side of, so I can, now I'm starting to kind of get into it, and it's it's a lot of fun, my friend. That's going pretty well. But you can see even working directly over the pigments, the dust pigments in particular like that, you can still manage and still come in and do stuff. There's a couple little things, if you wanted to get a little bit more streaky, like say for example, like a little bit more of a moisture streak, I did it like once or twice, but you can take your fan brushes like these guys, just quickly one and done, boom, done. That'll get you some more. You can go through this way. Just kind of one and done through the pigments. There it goes. You want to kind of see that there, and then that'll kind of give you another little level of And you'll see that when you get up close to it. You'll see that as you turn that model. You don't want it super in your face, but you'll see some of these little streaky loves. See how it catches it right there? You start to see that. It's coming along pretty good. This is a good model. So there you go. I'm done. That's all I got for you. It's got in my face. Okay, what else we got? Question time. Q&A. We'll wrap up. We'll wrap it up. That's come along pretty good. Desert weathering's fun. I forget. It's been a minute since I've done a good desert tank. I admit it's desert and winter are my two favorites by far. I like the extremes of the thing. To be truthful, you can really build the depth of visuals up with this process. You can come back in. You can do another round of layers. You can build up another round of layers. And remember the old stream where I talked about weathering time? That comes into it too. Sylvain says, you've been talking about this method many times. I believe I agree, but does it make the presses much longer? Does it make the printing presses much longer? The process much longer? Well, that's up to you. I mean, so first off, there's the whole debate on how fast you want to go. I mean, what's your end game? If your end game is to produce a model a month, I'm sure you can go faster in certain sections. If your end game is to produce the best model you can produce, then the time's going to be the time you put into it. It's not going to really matter at that point. It's not going to matter what way you go. If I had to do this with all the pre-made bottle stuff to do this kind of stuff, it's still going to take me a shit ton of time to get that level of effect with all those other products. I actually find the oil paints to be the fastest of everything when you're going. Now, I'm talking to you guys. So this drags out way long, Sylvain. So you're probably seeing a distorted element of, like, if you just broke down that one fender right there, dude, that's probably 15 to 20 minutes of work. And I can go, if I did a 2 or 3 hour session, I can probably do the whole side and get all this done too in a couple of days. So technically, no, it's just I'm streaming this. Hey, Marino, what's up, buddy? So it depends a little bit. There's a lot of factors involved in terms of the speed of finishing a model, and I'm not a purveyor of 24-hour weather and all that kind of stuff. That's a gimmicky sell product kind of conversation, in my opinion. I think good quality model work, it simply does take time. Now, whether that's a day or a week, that's kind of on you a little bit. But the truth be told, Sylvain, looking back at this, as I think back through, here, for example, the Hetzers in this guy. Probably put him towards the back because shits and giggles. Where's he? Yeah, this guy. So this dude here, just by contrast of the process. So this model here, the Jagdpanzer 38T in this book here, this is all pre-made bottle stuff. This is all predates OPR, but it's the same conversation. I'm putting, you go from, let me zoom out a little bit here. Oh, that's it. Okay, so if you can see that there is you can see how it's slightly yellower over here. So this is the painted model. All the hand-painted tools, the tracks, everything's base-coated in the colorways that I want to use later on. The camo's on, all that stuff's done, airbrush, boom, filter, the whole thing's airbrush filter, old school style process of Mig used to teach us as brush the filters on, and I'm like, you know what, just throw the airbrush in there, dude, and start airbrushing this stuff, because brush filters take forever to dry because it's an enamel product. So I started airbrushing filters on, and you can see a slight color shift, a little bit warmer tone because it's kind of an orangey color. Coming in here with the pin wash, it's your standard process of putting the pin wash over the whole model. Boom, the whole thing. I go over through the whole thing, pin wash, pin wash, pin wash. There's a couple little early streaks and stains. Cannot talk today. My enunciation is shit, I will say that much. And then continuing on, same idea. This is doing it over the whole model, old school, all the way through, just showing you just kind of quickly, like when you put something down, then blending it out, coming in, redoing it, building up opacity, doing the whole pin wash thing on the track assembly. So somebody mentioned that earlier. In some cases where you're using a Lincoln length plastic track, you can glue them all as a unit. You can weather them all up as a unit. It takes a little bit more time, but on the Hetzer, it's a smart play if you want to do it. This does speed things up, so if you're looking for that, there is that. But again, pin wash, there's some speckling stains in there that I was throwing down. And I was doing those early days. I actually talk about speckling a lot more. And then coming in here, full pigments over the whole thing, pin washes again on top of this, layer by layer by layer, doing the whole model. So there's plenty of that conversation in here. This took forever. Took forever. Like, it's just a slow grind. And what happens is all that pin wash stage And that was an ampersand project at one point in time. Dude, it's just a grind. It's not fun. It doesn't pin wash in a model, like the pin wash on a model, it doesn't get fun until that last 5%. What I found was when I was doing the whole thing at once. Now this thing doesn't need a lot of pin washes in the classic context because it has a different look. It's a desert. There's different colors for the pin washes in terms of the dust in there. So you have a slightly different colorway, but that's far more because I'm getting to the end result of what the whole model process took in that little fender. So I don't think there's the conversation of speed is as different as people think it could be. Now, the other thing is you got to do it too, Sylvan. Got to commit and get that done. So there's your long one. You know what? I watched a Bill Belichick answer. If you guys haven't seen it, it was the greatest thing I saw in the last for a while. It was on YouTube and I was scrolling through something, but somebody had asked Bill Belichick, New England Patriot coach, on what the long snapper's purpose was on the team and the roster, and that why can't they just get somebody else to be a long snapper and then build a roster spot up for like another receiver or running back or whatever. And he gave it 20 minutes. It's the greatest thing ever. So my long-winded answer, that's my Bill Belichick answer for you today. That's what that is. That's your coach answer there, Sylvain. Franco, you're welcome. Question, any chance, Mike, you can throw some nice close-up from today's work on the... Yes, for you, Darren, I will. No problem. No problemo, senor. But you can see the colorways here. Again, pulling the tracks back up. You know, the colorways are going to be working with the tones of the model. You can see how the dust tone against the warm. So there's a lot of warm and cool conversation. Go back and watch those. What else we got? I'm just scrolling back up a little bit. I haven't caught some questions. Panzer Dance, it's too simple to throw you even more the complex weather. Yeah, I did. This is actually a simplified weathering process. So yes, I agree. I've developed my modeling routine process over decades, Jim, for sure. The more tutorials, the more I learn new methods and ways of doing it. Absolutely need to order some. You do, Jim. Get them books, boys. Get them books. Buy them books. Click the like button and then subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you. You can't wrap up. Marino just got here. 2 more hours. I believe in you. You got it. I'm exhausted though. I'm hungry. I got to eat too. It's dinner time. 6 p.m. here. Pete Tui, you're welcome, my friend. I tell you what, guys. It's nice to do that. I'm glad I decided this. Desert armor is awesome. Just we're calling it. And to my Gundam dudes out there, Skyers, you guys listening, get some desert pieces. Get a Dawaj, get a Dom Trope in a desert. Do this kind of routine and colorway, man. I tell you, because what you get is you get that the rich. Why this is so nice? Those worn areas that come off desert tanks in particular really add a richness in color. You don't see it in the black and white photos, but when you work on it in color, where you get these really pale shades, and you can see how that low angle, that dust really is effective now. You can see that. So Leo Tattoo, if you ever see this, you're welcome, Omnipla. Thank you for hanging in from South Korea. When you see all this stuff, like when you rotate this through, so now, and you could probably tell just from listening to me, I'm in a really good mood because this went really successfully. It all went really well. It was very manageable. I still have to do a little bit of detail painting and stuff like that, and come back in and dial some stuff in. But the little scratches in here, it's money. It's a really great process, and the desert is really fun. Doug, I don't know what point you came in the conversation, but I reiterated OPR earlier a few minutes ago for you guys to kind of re-explain the thing to hopefully hit home. So yeah. And this is what the streams are for, is I'm actually literally trying to show you guys the teachings in the book one-to-one on the videos. Like this is the grill from Tank Art 4. It's literally how I did it. So it does hopefully hit that home. In the Panzer 4 DAC tank and Tank Art 1, a lot of similar things, different product selection because of pre-OPR, but at the same time, the wear and tear in the paint, that soft fuzzy wear and tear in the paint to recreate that first, then do this kind of process on top, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that hits home. A little bit of a slow roll earlier today. You can see the liquid pigments here, or the liquid fixer added direct, and then the dust pigment style. So you can see the varietal process with the pigments. What else did we do? We got some colorways on the tracks to alter your track colors. From a burnish kind of a pre-shade process into the wear and tear process, and we did some stuff with that. So you got a lot of good stuff today in episode, what are we at, 37? So we'll stream on Wednesdays to repeat. Any final questions? No problem, Doug. Yeah, we started it about 3 hours ago, so I'm hitting my limit here. Just meant to me hatch handles. Chris Storch, what we talk? Did I miss something? Thank you for the inspiration, Phil. You're welcome. Matt58, thanks for another great episode. You're welcome. Mark Sprayberry, what is your favorite medium? Oil paints, by far. Oh, definitely oil paints. But it is a standardized process for me too. But in terms of painting and weathering, Mark Sprayberry, acrylic base coats with solvent-based weathering. In this case, it's oil paints with odorless thinner, usually, and then the pigments are set down as kind of their own little thing. Corey, when are you getting an assistant? I don't know. I did meet a young lady. She's a videographer, actually. We were talking about this for a minute because I'm like, I told her like how I stream my setup and stuff. She's like, really? She said, that's like really hard, which made me feel good because I'm like, this is fucking really hard to film myself. And I know it's hard. Like, it's so clumsy. But I told her about the iPhone. She said, no, the phones actually do a really good job. So there's a little validation for you boys. Anyway, so yeah. I don't know when I'll get an assistant. I got to sell more books, to get to the point where get to an assistant. Brian asked, Mike, do you weather modern subjects different than World War II subjects? Yes, but you weather in kind of, my base answer to that is through references. So if, say for example, an F-16, it's or a 104, an F-100 or something, or even a Tomcat, you're going to load up, everything is built off of the references. So in this case, it's desert tanks, and I've got my books up in front. When you switch into a different subject, whether it's an Abrams in Europe or Russian armor, modern Russian, whatever that is, reference up, get your baseline set to figure out what get your game plan going, basically. And then you're going to set up your colorways, and then you're going to work through that way. So the flexibility, the next element to all of this is the flexibility of the system to work from a desert armor to a European armor to whatever your scenario is, whether it's aircraft or naval or Gundam or whatever it is. And maneuvering yourself within it, because the brushes, most models this size, the relative size, the brush scenario works pretty well. It's only the little tiny Jimmy Jams get a little bit tough sometimes. But Chris, did I miss a question on the hatch handles? I see some. That's gold. Gold Brothers. Okay, I hope I'm okay. If I missed any, if you asked a question earlier and I haven't, you've got a few minutes left. I'll wrap up here in a second. You're welcome, Darren. You too, buddy. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there, guys. You're welcome, John. And did I answer that question, Mark? Was favorite medium? So acrylics are impervious to solvents, and the oil paints are hyper flexible. They're the most flexible paint system around. They're more flexible than enamels and acrylics. So the flexibility, they can go from 0 to 100% opacity. Most of the other paints can't do that as well, or as effectively, or as easily, or as efficiently. And they dry dead matte too, by the way. So I tend to go that way. Weathering tends to be a little bit more on the matte side of life in general. But yeah, Corey, I'd like to. But I'm sure you got a really nice dinner tonight. Corey, Relatable 100 is always cooking up every time he comes in. But it's evening for where he's at, so... any other final questions here before we wrap up? Did I hit everybody's? Got to get back and see what I missed. All good. Keep me watching. Yep, appreciate. You're welcome, Corey. Thank you. You're welcome, Brian. But yeah, it's anytime you set forward with the project, and if it's something you don't have a reference for, then cross-platform the reference. Say for example, Gunpla doesn't. There's not a lot. Obviously, it's animation, cartoons, if you will. Look at construction, look at similar volume items like construction equipment or Navy ships to see how they chip and scratch. So you can apply that same size painting scenario to something the size of a 30 meter machine or 15, 20 meter, whatever whether it's Evangelion or, Gunpla or whatever it is, that whole thing. So you've got to kind of sort of whatever. Yeah. God, it's going to get dark fast. This is going to suck. I hate this time of year when it starts to get dark really fast. Amps in Atlanta? No, Mark, I won't. I'm not going to Amps in February. Cheers, Mike. You have a great day too, bud. Thank you. Happy Thursday. I think it's Sunday for a second, but yeah. And I'll see you guys on next Wednesday. We'll stream next week. Next Wednesday, my Patreon dudes. I'll see you on Patreon. The links are in the description down below if you guys like to join. It's just another level of support, but it also is a little bit more intense learning experience. Everything you see in the stream, I kind of get more intense, but it's also more specific. Mike says, when are we getting some mecha? I just finished up I did a bunch of mecha, Mike. Go back, stream 34-ish. I did all the hand painting. Did you catch the hand painting stuff? That was cool. I actually I gotta do finish the weather. I'm looking up at the little power dolls, dude. I gotta finish the oils on that one. I am 1/100 planning to. I've got to get the GP04. I started to heighten the model, Mike, and I was expanding the thighs. I have to finish that process and respray the thighs. And then what was I? Oh, the decals. The decals I wanted to put on the GP04 are in the same shipment box as my Gunzi decal stuff and my RG High-Nu. So I did a really poor ordering job. I've got some extra hoses. I've got some extra rivet detail parts. I've got the 3D printed resin parts from USA Gundam Store. I've got all my Mecha decals in there from Tim, Child of Mecha decals. And then I've got the RG High-Nu in that box coming in, which is 2 weeks out still. So we'll see. But we'll get some before the end of the year for sure, Mike. We'll have some good hardcore Gunpla. And I've got to finish the Dom Tropin. I still got to get back on him. It's slow going. The thing I learned, Mike, especially with weathering Gundams in particular, is kind of more than anything else, it's the fact that there's 4 sides to every section. You know, so in the case of like the leg here on the Dom Tropin, I've got to weather this side, this side, this side, up in here. I got to, like, it's that rotation of, and you've got 2 legs, 2 arms, the body, the head, the backpack. So it starts to, when you really get into the hardcore weathering of Gunpla, it does, to Sylvain's question, the armor goes way faster, truth be told, because this is one giant leg, and I've got 4 of those on this guy. So it starts to compound itself in terms of time. Yeah, so Corey's cooking pork chops seared in garlic and onion, then backed in cream of mushroom soup, cheddar broccoli, rice, and Brussels sprouts with bacon. And he puts hashtag fat boy problems. I hear you, man. Okay. Yeah, I've got to get to the weather, but that's, I got to finish the Snobble Guns over here. That's for Patreon. I got to finish him over there. Power Dolls, I got to finish the weathering on him, even though the hand painted look has a nice look. It's in a good spot. Mike's just do it. Yeah, do it. Get on it. Yeah, I'm gonna have a tough one here with all the stuff going on. But what else we got? Anything, Matt Formanek? Fantastic. You're welcome. Cheers. Like a face day. Yeah, the room lighting when it gets dark in here, definitely. I've just got the one lamp on right now. I should get up and turn on the regular. I'm too lazy to get up and turn on the rest of the lights. But anyway, any other questions, guys? I'm gonna sign off. What else we got? Thank you for hanging in acapella. I appreciate that. Corey says his daughter 9 says I do great. She heard you curse. Oops, my bad. I might have thrown an F-bomb or 2 out there. I apologize. I know some words aren't so bad, but the F-bomb I should probably keep in line. But yeah. All right, guys. And yeah, I'll do a little bit more work on this over the next couple days, and then I'll take some good pictures from my Patreon dudes. I'll throw some stuff up on Instagram too. This gives me fresh material I haven't put an Instagram post up for a minute. It seems like a couple days go by in Instagram. It's like forever. Anything else, everybody? I'm going to sign off. Everybody good. Thank you again for all the good questions tonight. Good Q&As. I think we covered some good ground tonight in terms of just concept theory and application. And we got some really good tonal variations going on in terms of applying desert stuff to really make it look like it's in the desert and dry and just not, I mean, I can't imagine fighting a war in North Africa. But anyway, yep. Nope. I've cut the cursing back quite a bit. So I might have let a few go, but it's not too bad. We're okay. It's adult level. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Everybody, I'll see you next Wednesday. And I'll post up 24 hours before. Patreon guys, I'll see you guys soon. And the rest of you all have a good one. Take care. You know, be nice to your mom. Yeah. And that's it for me.